Yeah, I did have this like really serious issue the other day where, air quotes, where I couldn't get this raccoon to like, he kind of had like a little booty pop in the illustration. And I was like, I can't, like, I probably spent like an hour trying to get him to like look less sassy. And like, that night I was like, man, I had a kind of a weird day at work. Like I couldn't get this raccoon to like stop looking like so sassy, you know? So like, yeah, we all trade off.
But yeah, the,
It's time for Gavin Doodle.
I'm live. I'm lively. Ooh, my throat just made a weird noise. How is everybody? It's Thursday night. Thursday night at 8 p.m. means one of only two things. One, it's either Thursday night at 8 p.m. or two, it's a Gavin Doodle, which means that we're going to have a special guest on here in a second. And I actually mean a special guest this time. And I'll explain for those that are tuning in from afar that don't know what that means. Hold on one second. I'm just putting the Ask Us Anything into the chat here, and I'll talk to you about who we're having on tonight, which is a fun, interesting twist. Okay, so let me just pin this comment here real quick. Pin comment. Okay, so welcome everybody. So tonight, let's put it this way. In the past, when we started this, we've had on guests that are all illustrators and people that we love and things of the sort. And then we've had on people that I've known through sort of professional career throughout the years. But all of a sudden tonight we're having something that's a little special for me, which is the first time that I'm having a former student on. And I should say former student, i.e. they are a professional in their own right. But it's the first time that I've had a relationship that was a professor to student situation, and that student, or now professional, I was about to say professor, professional is Madison, no, I just pointed in the wrong section, Madison Safer, who did Bring Back the Babka, and Before Music, and Before Colors. These are giant books. These things are huge. You can see how much screen it takes up. I mean, that's a big book. And so we'll talk all about this stuff, and we'll probably have some reminiscing about the olden times, which I don't even want to know how long ago it was. I know Madison's watching right now, and I will let Madison in a second, but I feel like it's going to date things really quickly for me because I have an immediate connection in this instance. So we will let Madison in a second, but Madison, let me pull one of these just so we can sort of look real quick. Madison is someone who has always had this love of gouache and sort of the best I can describe it is a communing with nature aspect that shows up in all of the work. So even in something like a book about music, there tends to be lots of sort of natural aspects that show up, which is oh so lovely. And so I'm excited to see what they make tonight. But let me let our special guest in, and we'll get going. So give me 1 second. Let me allow. While I wait, and 3, 2, 1. No, I tried. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hey, there we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, nice. Yeah.
You came in with half a voice.
I know.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, so date me real quick. When did you graduate?
I graduated, I believe, the first time Trump was elected. That was 8 years ago.
Okay.
So really not that bad.
No, but it's one of those things where like pre-pandemic, it all becomes a blur for me of when people graduated, and so like 8 years out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It gives me a reference point so we can sort of talk. And I don't want to spend forever. I'm already jumping into it because we know each other. I don't want to spend forever reminiscing and being like, okay, do you remember this? Do you remember that? But there is a different relationship here that than what I've had on other guests, so that's going to pop up. But first of all, how are things?
Things are very good and things are very busy,
But
which is great.
very busy in what way? Like in projects? Just
Yeah, I'm working on 3 books right now at the same time.
3 books? What? Well, you can't. Picture books?
Picture books. Um, one of them I wrote.
Oh, it's gonna be your first authored book. Can
Hmm.
you tell us what the theme is?
Garlic.
Okay. Is it a narrative or is it? Because I know that like you also do a lot of like what do I want to say, like herbal mixtures, teas, and like you love the sort of the not apothecary. That's what I'm
Sure.
looking for.
Herbal's fine.
Yeah,
Plants.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
whatever.
So is that kind of vibe, or is it something that's got like a
No,
narrative?
sure. I think I can talk about it. I mean, it's been like announced.
Okay,
So,
yeah. Okay,
it's through a publisher called Iron Press,
okay.
publisher in Brooklyn, and it is about a family who lives in a garlic bulb underground. And they love it until a mole comes and eats a giant hole in the garlic bulb, and they have to leave and learn what it's like to live in a world that hates the smell of garlic.
This sounds like it's. I mean, this sounds like it's right up your alley. With. I mean, obviously you wrote it. That's a dumb statement.
You know, it's so up my alley. One might say I curated it.
Yeah. It's just funny, like the idea of like it's got the gardening aspect, it's got the critter aspect, it's got the underground thing.
Yeah.
Like there's all the sorts of things that like connect. So this is you definitely sold a story that is right up your alley. Let's put it that way. Every once in a while, I write ones that are not up my alley, and I'm like, what am I even thinking?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So garlic eater was like kind of a slur that used to be used for Jewish people. And because Jewish people were some of the first people to import garlic into Eastern Europe.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So like you'll see like medieval depictions of Jews like holding like money bags and clothes and big bundles of garlic as these like stereotypes.
Yeah. Okay.
So the publishing company that I'm working for predominantly does Jewish books, and so also is kind of like a bit of like a love tale to diaspora and like how do you assimilate and also still maintain like the scent of where you came from, essentially.
Yeah. The was scent chosen specifically in that sentence?
So,
Garlic breath?
maybe.
So well, tell me, well, no, wait, don't tell me. Tell the world
Yes. Very good.
who you are, what you do, even though they already kind of know, but tell us a little bit more of sort of, give us a background for those that don't know.
Yes. So, as you said, my name is Madison Safer. I'm a children's book illustrator, and I also do a lot of surface design and editorial work. I live in Western Massachusetts with my dog, Virginia Woolf. And yes, who is my studio mate, I would also say, for the most part. Yeah, my work I think is really inspired by Eastern European folk art. That's like a huge love of mine, by the natural world and things that are Hamish, homey. I'm really interested in like telling narratives about the home in a way that feel relatable. So,
and with and we'll get into sort of career and sort of how that blossomed and things of the sort. But you're out in Western Mass. Are you out near Corinne?
Where's Corinne these days?
She's out in Western Mass.
Do you know where? Well, maybe.
I probably, if I looked up on a map, I might be able to point it out. But she's out a ways, like maybe like 3 hours or a 2-hour drive outside of Boston, like past Springfield, at least. Like,
I'm in just near Northampton, so I am very lucky. I'm only 15 minutes away from the Eric Carle Museum.
Oh, okay. You're living in the lap of luxury when it comes to Kidlit. Okay.
You can't throw a stone here and not hit a children's book illustrator. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Is that where water? But
is that where you were from originally?
No, we moved about 9 times when I was a kid.
You were like from Vermont or
New,
something, right? No, where? New Hampshire. That's right. Okay, I was like, it's one of the two.
yeah, I wish.
Before, okay. I mean, you know the history of why there's the big kidlit thing out there, right?
Is it because of the Carl?
It's there was a group of New York children's book authors and illustrators that were trying to get away from the city and decided a bunch of them transplanted. So it was Eric Carle and a bunch of his contemporaries. He was sort of one of the bigger names, but there was a bunch of folks that came out and moved up to that area specifically and sort of planted there. And that's why we have that big growth of like, so that's why like Tommy DePaula, that's why I can't think of her name right now. Jane Yolen, some of the folks that are still like around are out in that area as well. And so it sort of grew up, and then all these people started populating, and now it's just flooded with lots of folks.
It's awesome. I have like a critique group here with two really amazing illustrators. I don't know if you know Misha Archer. She did Daniel wrote a poem,
okay,
which was a Caldecott.
Yeah.
And my friend Mira Bartok, who did the Wonderling, which is like more of a J-fic.
Yeah.
Kind of. But we meet about once a month, and both of them are just absolutely phenomenal illustrators. And it's like, I met Mira at like a coffee shop, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I know everyone," and like off like 8 other illustrators she knew, and was like, "We'll just get together once a week." And like, it's very easy to do that kind of stuff here.
If it wasn't for me being tied down to this area for other reasons, that would be a place to look.
Yeah.
Because I know that it also price-wise drops a little cheaper too when you get out that far. Not necessarily in certain areas there.
No,
I know that.
Northampton. But
yeah.
And it's it's such a creative area, and it's really nice to also be close to the colleges too, because they really have a lot of life. So
tonight we're gonna chat and we're gonna make, and the rule of thumb that I tell everybody at the beginning is you're allowed to stay as long as you want. You're allowed to stay as little as you want. It really depends. I want to be respectful of your time. We know each other enough that if you just say, "Mark, I'm done. I'm tired of you," it's not going to offend me. I won't be offended of any sort. But what I need to know right off the bat, because my wife is watching and she records some information, and I'm guessing that you're going to be working with traditional materials.
I will be, yes.
Okay. So what are those materials that we're working tonight? Are there brands? Are there things that you sort of gravitate towards?
Yes. I use what you used when I was the Holbein of your acrylic gouache. Mm-hmm, very nice. Mm-hmm. And then I also used, the Prismacolor.
Okay. I don't know if you've tried, but I have fallen in love recently with, I'm trying to grab them here in the background. More so than Prismacolor. I'm not knocking Prismacolor because I have tons of them, but Caran d'Ache, the soft, what are these? These are called Supracolor Soft. I think it goes down a little bit better than Prismacolors on things. And then also they have pastel pencils that are even more soft. So like if you're worried about having to go back over it with paint, sometimes that one can be good, but I have found they're harder to come by because not every store carries them the way that Prismacolor is carried. Yeah. But I have been loving those. But because you were a traditional gouache before, right?
When I was in school, I was like strictly watercolor and like clay-based gouache.
Yeah.
And for some people, they really can work it, and it's not really muddy for me.
Okay. So you just like the not necessarily permanence, but the semi-permanence of the acrylic gouache?
Yeah, I mean, like, I hate to be like I like the artificial color, but it's true. Like, whatever those chemicals are, like, they're working. These
and like you can get pale lavender, not just lavender, and pale lilac. Some of the palette that they have is so different than so many of the other ones that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I still will throw in traditional gouache sometimes too. Like, I like a traditional Naples yellow more than, because I find that it like kind of is like a little too translucent. So it depends on
let me ask you a Holbein question here real quick, because it's they don't come in big tubes, come in little tiny tubes.
Well, you can get like the white in a big tube.
Yeah, but the colors are small. But I'm wondering, like, have you built up a huge arsenal of color at this point, or do you have like your favorite stash that you sort of stay with?
Well, I can give you a quick studio tour if you
I
would
would
like.
love it. I
Okay.
would love it.
This is, you'll see I'm in kind of an industrial space. I just moved in to a new studio.
Okay.
In Florence, we have something called the Arts and Industry Building, which is like three floors of just like complete art studios. There's like also things you would so Western Mass is a very like crunchy area.
Yep.
You know, so like
Oh, I know.
there's also they have like singing bowl workshops here, or you know, somatic yoga classes, like things you would kind of also expect to be in like, you know, they call it the, you know. Um, so it's like a little bit of the community space, a little bit of artist space, but ultimately like there's a lot of different rooms. And so I'm renting from a friend who's a woodworker who built me this like little, actually can I turn the camera? See if I can do this. So he built me like this little like kind of enclave again.
Yeah.
So this is my studio mate who is a weaver, which is cool. And then this is my little guy. I just moved in like very recently, so I'm still getting acquainted. But it's like, you know, I found this desk on the side of the road, which was great, and there's leaves that you can pull out. And then I won't stay on this too long because these are book projects.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah.
Don't show those. Don't show those.
Don't think about that too long. And then, you know, I'm able to put, you know, inspiration stuff. And then this is like kind of usually how I will paint. So it's like I have a tray of my favorite colors, and then I have a couple of different, you know, dishes that I paint on. I don't like really know. I hate to wash my palette, so a lot of times I'll do like both sides, you know, and I keep all my like colored pencils here and things like that. And then this is like my real stash of Holbein. This is like an old tackle box, I think. And so I like keep my like regular paints, you know, that I always use. And when I'm feeling a little not inspired, then I break into the other guys.
Do you, and this is, I don't know if this is a question that would register with a lot of people, but obviously like you have a palette that you pick for a book. Do you separate out those paints for when you're working on that project, or are you having to grab them out? Like, and I say this because when I'm working on a book, oftentimes it's like, okay, here's the 6 tubes of paint that I'm using for the color palette.
Yeah.
And I like have them out in front of me separated so I don't have to hunt them down later because there's so many colors off to the side in some way. And I thought maybe that's what that tray was. Is like the tray is your palette, and then the other stuff is the I'll dip into it if I need for a project kind of situation.
Yeah, so it's like I'm in 3 different stages with all 3 different books. One of the books I have 2 spreads left. One of them I'm finishing the dummy, and the other is second round of revisions of the dummy.
Okay.
So now the one that I'm almost done, this is all of the colors that I usually use. But to be honest, these are usually the colors I would use anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
But
yeah, I don't know. Like when I held up that like pale lilac.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's like one that you would gravitate towards all the time, but I imagine that maybe it's in your kit, but it's like
yeah. I really struggle with purple. I don't know what it is.
I used to hate purple and pink, and now I'm all about it. I love purple and pink.
They're cool colors. I love seeing in other people's work. It's like occasionally, I just never think to use purple.
You know what? My hard one is the like deep reds and deep blues, like dark
blue.
Yeah, like those are ones where I just don't gravitate to them in the same way. Okay, so we have a sense. Holbein. What's the surface? Just so we know, like, what are you using as your substrate?
Like for paper. Yeah. I always use the fluid cold press paper, which comes in little bricks.
What brand? I can't even see
it's
in here.
Fluid.
Oh, okay.
And what I like about it is, one, I really like when it comes in squares or pads, so you can just like really go through them.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I use it is because I have like a jet printer or whatever, and I can funnel this through my printer, and so I
Okay.
don't have to transfer all of my sketches a
Got,
million times.
gotcha. That makes sense.
And I actually think the quality is pretty good too, and it's really affordable.
And it
So
comes in big pads and everything too?
yeah, so this is like a 20, 20 pack for 6x6. I think it was like $10. It's really
Yeah.
affordable.
Okay. And I'd never heard of the brand Fluid in particular. I thought it was like Fluid was the name of the mixed media
No,
thing. And so I
no.
wasn't privy to that. Okay. So the other question is, what are we working on tonight?
That's such a good question.
It's
I'm
tougher
actually working.
question.
So
Yeah.
I haven't been able to paint for fun in so many months. I'm sure you can relate when you're working on big projects. You're like, this isn't fun anymore. This is serious business now. So I'm doing a paper doll. I wanted to do something a little lighthearted,
Cool.
something a little fun. And this summer, a couple of my friends put on a klezmer festival every year,
Okay.
and did this like design as like a coloring page. And so ever since then, I've been like really in love with it, and I wanted to make it into a full-fledged illustration.
Are you going to make it into an actual paper doll? Are you going to so not obviously not tonight. You're not going to make the paper doll tonight. I can't imagine, but you'll paint the pieces.
Yes, and then I will scan it in and make sure that correctly. And
Is it the intention with something like this that you're doing it just to make a singular paper doll, or is it to scan it in and reproduce multiples?
it's kind of so other people can do it.
Okay.
I really like making shareable things or things. Like the whole reason I love illustration is it's something that you're using in your real life. Like you hold a book every day.
Okay.
You have kids, you're holding a book every day, or if you're a
Yeah.
librarian,
Yeah.
like it's something that's on your walls. I like that there's like a tangible aspect to it. And so the thing I really struggle with social media is it's like you're in this like place that doesn't really exist. And so I get a lot of joy out of being like, here's this thing that you can like make into a card and send to someone, or like do with your kids, or like you can take it from being kind of abstract to in real life.
There's a fellow illustrator, and my wife will probably remember. I think it's Katie Vernon, but I could be wrong. Or Kaylee Quarles. I'm trying to remember who it was that, if she's listening upstairs, that did paper doll ornaments over the holidays. You could buy. Super, super cute. And it's one of those things where like paper dolls have always been interesting to me, but also at the same time, like I don't want to hand cut anything. I don't know if you remember back in like the business practice days where I showed a paper doll that I made for a promotional thing, and it was a nightmare. And so I don't ever want to touch them again unless someone does it for me.
Yeah.
But seeing those, I'm like
really dexterous.
Yeah.
In your life, maybe.
These hands can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we switch to our downshoots?
Great.
And we just start working, and we'll see where the conversation goes. The conversation is really meant to be a conversation. If you want to talk art, you want to talk something else, anything is fair game, and we'll sort of see where we go.
Woo.
Okay.
What are you doing? Wait, I didn't ask.
I drew about 3 seconds before we started. I drew a picture that looks like this, and
Amazing.
yeah, it's the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout.
Okay.
Down came the rain. Washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain, and the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. So I'm doing 3 little. I don't do this very often, but I was like, I want to make 3 little guys.
Nice.
And so like a little series. And so I was just happy with this little going up the water spout, and like
I love it.
out of the top. I've been looking at gutters basically recently because of ice dams and the fear of all the ice melting in our neck of the woods. And so
yeah, right.
That's my world right now, is thinking about ice and where all the water's going. So it's a tragedy. Let's put it that way. Okay, so let's switch to our downshoots and we can just start talking.
Okay, so
There we go. And now I do have a feed up here so I can sort of keep track of comments and questions that come in. And so if people want to, they can write into the comments. But I'll keep an eye out on sort of how your setup is, if there's any issues or anything of the sort. But I imagine that you know the drill. While you're setting up, though, I might ask you a question here of, can you tell us a little bit, and part of this is like, I know your work from school, I know your work from the books, but obviously there's things that are not, I can't keep up with everybody, I can't follow or track everything. And so can you give us a little sense of sort of what it was like post-school, what your career has been, sort of like a little mini history lesson of you?
Yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, take time to set up. If you need time to set up, I don't mean to rush.
No, you're good. I'm not like an amazing multitasker. All right, how's that? Is that good?
Show me where your hands coming in from. They're coming in. Yeah, you're perfect.
Okay. Okay, so after I graduated school, I had a brief time in Portland, Maine.
Okay.
Where pretty much like right out of school, I had a lot of student debt, to be honest. And so, which I know is probably surprising to anyone who's been to school. Yeah. And so like I really had the fear of God in me. And I was like, if I don't do this, like I'm going to die. So I don't know that I really recommend how I went about it, but pretty much as like 3 days after school ended, I queried probably over 50 agents. And I heard back from one who's still my agent. And as you know, we are part of the same agency. Yeah. And I really like my agent. Her name's Laura Perkins. And, you know, with anything just like takes time. I mean, I think something I didn't realize until I got in the industry, how slow and fast publishing is at the same time. And probably wasn't until like a year or two into having an agent that I really got my first book.
So to explain, can you, because there's people that are watching who have, you know, some of the folks, someone's saying shout out to Laura in the comments, but do you know Ryan Rushing?
I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do. Yeah. She's a great friend of mine.
The idea of the slow and fast. So some people, you know, might have the assumption that one or the other, but can you give us an example of what you mean by slow and fast?
Okay, yeah. So it depends what kind of illustration you're like interested in going into. So if you're interested in like editorial, like magazine work, or, you know, for those who still, you know, do, I don't know, comics, newspapers, or what else would be editorial? What am I missing?
Just basically periodicals.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anything that would fall under that category.
Yeah. So you might get an email that's like, hey, we have a budget of $500 and we have 3 days to turn something around. And I mean, that's one of the great things about doing more things than just picture book, because a lot of times you'll get queried for a picture book, and then 5 months later you begin the very slow incline to, you know, working on the dummies and doing sketches, and then you have a pretty short amount of time for the turnarounds. So there's times where it's like you're kind of just like twiddling your thumbs, being like, do. I have a project that I know I have to finish, but it feels so far. And then other times where you're like, I will never sleep again. So that's kind of what I mean by that.
I mean, obviously that's, some of it's probably a surprise of getting out there and realizing like, oh, that either it's slow or it's fast, or like even with the picture book, you know, it's slow to get stuff going, but then when you get down to the end, like you're in those last 2 spreads, then it becomes a nightmare where there isn't enough time to get it done. But I'm wondering, like, is well, I guess a twofold question. One, was it shocking, or was it just sort of a reality that sort of came to hit you? and then the follow-up is, and do you enjoy it? In the sense of, like, do you like that sort of the speed moments, and do you like the slow moments? And if so, for sort of what reason in particular?
I actually prefer the faster pace than I do the slower, because I'm a very impatient person for the most part. When it comes to, like, I have pretty intense ADHD, and so I really like thrive off of change and things like that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really like having side projects that kind of are a little bit more like, you get the dopamine hit where you're like, oh, like right now I'm working on some packaging for a seed company, and I know that I'll submit it and 3 weeks later it'll be in print.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there also is something really rewarding about working on a book, forgetting about it almost, and then like 2 years later having it come out being like, whoa, either like my work has really improved since then, or you know, like I the thing I often feel is, wow, that was better than I was because I feel like you're just like so in the process that you don't even have the ability to be like, is this good? I don't even know. Like, does it even matter? You know?
Yeah, you're full steam ahead, and you don't have a minute to look back.
Yes.
To sort of see where you traveled.
Exactly. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now. Is this a collage situation?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much you've kept up with sort of like what I've been doing over the last few years, but I have shifted gears, and I basically do collage now.
I actually
not what I taught.
Digital. Are you doing this mostly traditionally?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So no, I have found, and I don't know, like some of this is probably in line with sort of your thinking too of, I really love the quirkiness of like folk art and some of the like irregularities that show up in sort of, I don't want to use the word naive, but like in some sort of untrained aspects of artists. And I found that I did a little sample. There was a Gavin Doodle I did years and years ago now at this point with Brianna Karzu, who does some really lovely picture books. And, oh no, I'm sorry, was it? Yeah, it was Brianna Karzu. Yeah. Yes. Who was doing collage. And I said, it'd be fun to try collage just one night. And I did it, and something just stuck. And I think really what it is I tried to mimic with a paintbrush edges that were irregular or were not as like fluid and crisp. And what I found is that it's super easy to do with scissors, because I don't have the skill to like. I mean, I guess I do have the skill, but it's with a different material. So like, if you get me an X-Acto blade, I can cut you a nice, perfect little design. But when I shift to scissors, all of a sudden it's just, I can't get the same detail level and I can't get the same crispness. And so my decision making is a little bit cruder.
Sure.
In the process. And so basically it allows me to do what I was doing with paint in collage without the like heavy lift or the heavy challenge of trying to mimic some of the like irregularity.
Huh, that is really cool.
And so it's sort of stuck, and it's still got paint, and I still paint and draw and do all that kind of stuff. But it has changed my sort of approach and made my work, I think, and I'm not trying to like brag in a situation like this, but I think it's made my work a little bit more quirky.
Yeah.
And so
were you mostly using like your own painted piece and then you collage them together?
Yeah, everything it's you mentioned Eric Carl before. Everything is basically trace that I'm cutting and chopping and putting back together to make the textures that I want and the colors that I want. So there's a little bit of translucency out of it.
Oh, cool.
When I started out, I don't know, I did have that sort of like, I'm going to, I'm going to paint more on top of it, and I found that just over time, I've just decided maybe I just don't need as much paint.
Sure.
Or I don't need to get a brush out at that level, and I just make stuff that's just sort of fun textures and let the cut edge sort of do a lot of the work for me.
Has that made like picture book process for you go faster?
I will be. I don't know. So here's the kicker, and you know this already, but time wise, I've been working on books for a while since I started this process, but none of those books have allowed me to do collage, i.e. they are previously done titles that like
okay.
you know, like they're in a series, or they're it's something wherein I haven't had the chance to really jump and do a new series or a new book where I've been able to try it until just now. And so I'm in the process of working on, I just sent off dummy stuff for one, and then I got hopefully we're waiting for final confirmation on 2 board books.
Have you done a board book before?
No.
Fun.
That's part of where this, like the spider thing tonight, the like
Yeah.
itsy bitsy spider, going back to sort of just really simple, cute design. Have you done a board book, or have you?
No, I really want to though. I like how they feel, you know, like I really want to work on a story that's like very minimal text, you know. Yeah. I feel like it'd be a really fun challenge.
What I have found is like, and I don't want to get into numbers with the audience tonight, but sure. I will say the company that I have been approached by, I was expecting lower numbers than what they. Yeah, because I've heard people on here, like I've had people on that say that they, you know, they don't get royalties or various things like that. And I'm like, oh, that kind of stinks. But this company that has approached me, they put forward a price that at first I was like, you know, that's pretty good. And then I mapped out how long it would take me to do it, because it's only 5 spreads.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, then I was like, oh, hourly rate all of a sudden doesn't look as bad, or is much more in line with what I would want to make, because I just don't have as much to do. And then on top of that, time frame wise, someone said like, well, you know, that's not a huge price. And I'm like, yeah, but imagine I might be able to do it in like a week.
Wow.
And so like, then I'm more excited. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. I think that's something I love. I mean, I think it's a benefit to being a traditional media artist, is like, I really love paper, you know, and so it makes working on books fun when they're like, we're using a special weight paper, where you can kind of be like, ooh, fancy, you know. It's fun to see kind of those like design choices, you know, in a way that feels a little bit more tangible. I love
the aspect of just like, in the end I have an object.
Yeah.
And every time I've done the digital stuff, and it's I understand digital is much easier in a lot of processes for a lot of folks, but for me, having something that is like I think it's very subjective, because I sometimes the images, like I don't want to pan over because my space is a mess, but I have a stack of images off to the side, and like they're just sitting there, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
Yeah, well, that's the downside.
Yeah, and so like storage wise, it's not as convenient. Or there's these things after you make them and you scan them and put them up on the internet, or send them off to a client or whatever it may be, that all of a sudden they're just extra, but there's still something nice to be able to go back and look at it and hold it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, in before colors, I painted a lot of rocks, and I think the rocks are very beautiful, but now I have over 300 paintings of rocks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I ever going to do with these, you know?
Can you sell them?
You know, I guess I could, but like, I think the number of rock enthusiasts in the world are pretty small. I don't know.
Yeah, those rock enthusiasts probably collect the rocks and not the artwork about the rocks.
Yeah.
In some weird way. Yeah. I do see there's a question here. Someone says, I'll take one. B. Machegos, I hope I'm saying that right, says that. So here's a couple of questions that I'm seeing sort of pop up
Okay.
here. Let me see. Hold on, I'm trying to get to this. How do you make your dummies for collage project? That's to me. I'll mention that in a minute. But here's one from Ryan Rushing. So Madison, you posted some animation recently on Instagram. Are you interested in doing more animation?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think if I had more time, I don't know. So my partner is a puppeteer, and I like love seeing things move. Like I love watching like the way that they operate like paper puppets, or like if you've seen Crankies before, like that really appeals to me, like the kind of traditional
Wait, what
movement
is
styles.
Crankies?
Oh, you gotta look it up. They're amazing. Like they're these boxes.
Oh,
You know what a box is, and there's like a roll of paper and you crank it and then like the illustrations come through. And
okay. I know what you're talking about
yeah,
now. I didn't know
yeah.
if there was like some like animated show called Crankies or something. I didn't know
No.
what the reference point was. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
like like I'm really interested in that kind of quote unquote animation. Um, I don't know, like I just watched James and the Giant Peach too, which was the first movie I ever saw. And it's like watching the way that like the figures move is so mesmerizing. But what the truth is, like I have a really short attention span, which is why I paint. Like I'll never be a painter who spends 100,000 hours on a painting. Like that's why I love
Yeah.
illustration. In animation, like you gotta really be locked in. So I love doing GIFs. I love doing like small animation. Like there's something really exciting about seeing a painting move, even if it's just like 5 frames.
Is it
Um,
when you do the animation, even if it's like a GIF or it's a a little um, uh, sort of short animation, is there intention that, or do you see applications for it? Like, I mean, back in the day, and I don't know if you're still doing this or I tried to do it early on, but like make book trailers, but I feel like it's fallen off quite a bit. Like people sort of have moved on from that.
oh,
Um,
I've never
like
made one myself. I had on Bring Back the Bobka, my publisher made one, which was
yeah,
cool. But I
yeah,
think that
I've
was
seen.
using Flash, and I have no idea how to use Flash.
Oh,
So
okay,
yeah.
I've seen people do that kind of like animate their books for instances like that, but I've not seen like an application outside of if the book takes off and becomes something like WGBH picks it up and says they're going to make a show, then
Sure.
all of a sudden, um, but it's one of those like it's so time consuming sometimes to do that stuff that I always question, okay, what's the value in it for me as an illustrator to make my stuff move? And, is there some other project that makes more sense for the time that I have or the time that I have allotted
Yeah.
going forward? So let's go back a little bit for a second.
Okay.
And walk me through sort of, you get work after school,
Oh, right. Yeah.
you're like, you're hustling, you're trying to make this money,
Yeah.
trying to live the fabulous life of an illustrator
Oh, yeah.
when you walk out the door. Talk to
Absolutely.
me a little bit about some of the like the success and struggle, not necessarily jobs in particular, but some of the like just life issues that come up being an illustrator. Like obviously you have a studio.
I do now for the first time ever.
Yeah.
But,
So like that's
fixing to
something you have to pay for, right?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I only pay $100 a month for my studio, but to be honest, it is the size of a closet. So I
Yeah.
feel, but I need a desk,
Yep.
Yeah. After I got my agent, I still had a lot of second jobs until this year. So I worked as a librarian for a while in New Hampshire, at the Dale Memorial Library, which was a library in a town of like I think 1,000 people. So, and I loved it. I mean, like what better job could you ask for as someone who like already loves books? like it ruled. Like even when my job was just like sorting the picture books, it's like you hold each title in your hand and you're like, oh, this makes me think of this and this makes me think of this. So, and I also love to read, so that was great.
Were you in the
And then
Were you in the book section? Like, were you in the children's librarian, or were you a librarian stuff for just general library
in
needs?
like tiny libraries, you don't tend to have
Okay.
like a lot of separation. At one point, I did work in I worked at another one in Peterborough, New Hampshire, which the first free library in the country. Shout out to the Peterborough Library. And actually, a smaller brush for this. Yeah, so I worked in the children's section there, but the one that I worked at longer, I did both. And I also taught a couple of college classes for a minute at New England College. So I've always, I
I
did,
didn't know that you.
yeah,
Okay.
I did. Yeah, I taught illustration like 101
With
basically.
Ryan.
And with Ryan, yeah, who I believe is still there, hopefully.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, he's still there.
and there was a time that I was doing all three at the same time. So what I really actually started doing before books was I did a lot of editorial. I did probably 20 or so pieces for a magazine called Taproot, which has since gone under. I did greeting cards for Papyrus. I did a seed packet. I did just like lots of kind of odd jobs here and there in between. And then when I started getting books, I I kind of started focusing more on that than the other things because
You went all in.
I did.
Yeah.
And I still do some. I'm doing a line of greeting cards for a company right now, and I just designed a line of dog toys, which was like such a joy.
Wait.
It's like so much of. I mean, maybe you feel this way. So much of my job is like I'm constantly thinking, what does a parent want for their kid to want? It's like parents are the one who buys books, not kids. So you're like, I've been thinking about
I
you know.
you back up for a second.
Oh
You
yeah,
did dog toys?
yes. So that's what I was gonna say. Is like with dog toys, the whole time I was like, cool. What does a dog want? Like a dog wants to have fun. Like a dog wants like something like fuzzy and bright, and well, maybe not bright because they can't see color, but like they want things that make sound. And so like I was approached by a company called Fringe, and they were like, hey, we really like your stuff. We know you're not like a 3D artist, but are you interested in designing a line of dog toys and dog bowls? And I'm a huge dog lover. My gift to myself when I paid off my student loans was a dog.
Okay.
And she goes everywhere with me. I love my dog. And so it was such like probably one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on. It was so fun.
Did you were you doing artwork that was going to be applied onto those things,
Yeah.
or were you doing the actual here's how the toy would work?
I did artwork that would basically I designed the characters.
Okay.
And then they helped model them, and then I would they would be like, we want the tail to be made out of this specific kind of rope. Like, can you make the feet look like rope? Can you we want the wings to be like crinkly inside. Like, can you design the exterior for that? So it was like those kinds of.
But then it was handed off to a toy manufacturer.
I presume a dog toy manufacturer. Something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was wondering, were you having to sew, or what was the variables involved in something like that?
No, it was they're mass produced, so you can there's a major store that they're like most malls and things that are considering buying them, or they're someone like Target could potentially buy
Gotcha.
or whatever. So they're not hand sewn or anything.
Is that something
which
you thought you'd be doing when you grew up, when you were little, sitting back going, I'm up for dogs?
You know what? Like, I think I would be really stoked if I was a kid and found out that I made dog toys. You know, I think I'd be like, whoa, being an adult is like fun, you know, and not maybe not as boring as my parents say it is. So,
And art will take you places. I
yeah,
mean, technically you're still in the studio, but
yeah,
you're still, you know, you get some variety in there. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's always interesting to hear where people sort of end up post school, the types of careers they have. And that is not something I would have said, you know what, Madison, when you get out, you're going to make a dog toy sometime.
yeah.
But then all of a sudden, now, did you get the dog toy for your dog
I
to
have
play with?
really, really sweet art director. I really liked her. And she like hand packaged me an extra dog toy with like a bow around it. And it said to
Oh,
Virginia Wolf. And it lasted all of 6 hours. So
just chewed right through it.
yeah, I mean, she's like a terrier. She's pretty wily. She's got like pretty sharp teeth. Like, you know, she's like a tough
Yeah.
candidate. I don't usually get stuffed things because like, you know, but I was
Well,
like, this is a gift for you, so I'm not going to deprive you the pleasure of destroying
the
this thing I've created.
terrier, you know, I mean, there's a reason why they got that name, is they go in and rat out
Oh yeah,
little critters under the ground,
oh yeah.
and you give them a toy like that, that's right up their alley.
She's
Um,
she's a rat terrier mix, and there was one time we were on a walk, and she like sticked her nose and everything, and she found a mole, and she like flipped it up in the air, and like in my head I was like, my muse, like
yeah,
what are you doing?
just taunting you that
Yeah,
you love this thing, and I will destroy it in front of you
yeah,
just to mock you
yeah, and
and to show
it was
who's
fine.
dominant.
It scurried away. No moles were harmed in the
Yeah.
making of production, so it was fine.
So tell me a little bit about sort of the. I mean, obviously you've had success. You've had this variety of things that have sort of populated your resume, your career, what have you. But obviously there's been some hurdles and some struggles along the way. And I'm wondering, can you give us a little sense of sort of where you've had to, what do I want to say, like not necessarily adjust, but are there things that you've had to sort of manage in your time doing this that have been sort of surprising or challenging, or you know, kept you on your toes in a way that one would not expect?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't start doing it full time really until this year, and a lot of that is because the industry tends to be pretty feast or famine often. It's
Yeah.
like you'll be working your butt off on a book, you know, and then like I get like kind of almost like book postpartum where like then you finish, and if you don't have a product or a project after, like there's just kind of a hollow, like I have a really hard time once it's done almost, you know. And it's I'm very lucky that I have not gone a year since graduating without working on a book. But even if you're working on just one book, there's a lot of waiting in between.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest complaint about the industry at large is the way that they pay illustrators, which I don't think I think most people would agree with. And it's not even necessarily the amount; it's just the you know, you'll work on books and then 7 months later you get paid.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge when you are
Day to day, living by check kind of.
yeah. Or doing your taxes is really hard, or you know, like just being able to anticipate. I just find that to be one of the reasons that sometimes I have wondered long term what being in this career is like. But I guess really at the end of the day, like I really do love it, and you know, that stability is, or I guess instability can be really challenging.
Yeah.
But
And there's there are certain like publishers who are known for being really great at payment. Other
Yeah,
ones are, maybe not the best,
sure.
and then some that are known to be awful.
Yeah,
And I not necessarily publishers of books, but beyond that, like there's some. I won't name names here, but I know there are some companies I would not work for because of their payment structure.
yeah, no, exactly.
Uh, and it's not like, oh, I need the money that day, but it's just like it's kind of awful that they operate in that manner, and just a moral aspect tells me maybe I don't take that job because
Totally.
someone else might need that pay, or someone else like I don't know, like some it's there are a couple of odd ones, and you probably know some of the names too
Sure.
that are out there.
Sure. So I find out like the day to day, that is what's hard about it. I think in terms of the thing I was surprised to find is, I tend to think of art as something for myself that's like both deeply personal and impersonal at the same time. And I think that's a nice thing about being an illustrator is like, I kind of have a joke amongst friends where it's like every day I go to the gnome factory, and like and make
Yeah.
gnomes for my job. And to some degree, it's true. Like I recognize that there is a certain commercial aspect to it, and so you sometimes have a little less creative control than you would want. And it's really hard, I think, sometimes when you have a vision, when someone says, well, the vision that you have isn't very commercially viable.
Yeah.
Because
there's
that's
a
yeah.
no or you have to check in with someone in order to get approval.
Yeah.
Something that is like inherently you can be challenging.
Yeah, I worked on 2 books that I really liked, that I wrote, 2 manuscripts, and they both got passed on. And some of it is the market has been really tricky the last couple of years.
Yep.
And not to sound pessimistic, but I'm very curious what that will look like in the coming years as well. Uh,
The coffee means a lot.
yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's funny the kind of feedback you'll get. Sometimes people will be like, we love this book, but we're actually only buying books about dogs and STEM right now. And you're like, what the heck? Like, okay, like I guess if that's what the industry wants. And so it sometimes is just a little dehumanizing feels really strong of a word, and that's not the word I want to use, but it's really disheartening, maybe is what I want to say. I don't know how many books you've pitched. I know you have 2 author illustrator, right?
Yeah, and there's honestly, I have not done a lot of writing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done writing in the past and sent it to my agent, and to be honest, I have not put the time in to
Sure.
merit a lot of like going out and selling those books, because I've been working on other people's books for so long that I like time wise with that and teaching, I am not spending the time that I need to writing, and now I'm trying to do more of that as I go along.
Sure.
But it is sort of disheartening. Even just, I mean, I think there's the assumption that like, oh, you write a book, you think it's great, and then your agent goes out and pitches it, but the agent also weighs in on sort of, they can't go out and sell something unless it's sort of quality or
of marketability at the time.
Yeah. And so like it's one of those things where you have to like, there's a lot of factors that weigh into it. And I think it's more than just, is it a good idea? As you said, it has to hit the right time frame. There has to be, if there's a publisher that has a book that's similar, or they know of a book that's coming out that sort of feels like it's in the same vein, you don't want to hit the exact same thing at the same time, because they'll both cancel each other out for sales. There's so much stuff that comes into it beyond just like, can you draw a good picture?
Exactly. And I had one person who was really interested in a manuscript I wrote, and the story revolved around a little bat, and they were like, we love this book, but we were already publishing a book about bats this year.
Yep.
And it's just kind of things like that where it's like, okay, like how could you ever anticipate that kind of,
You don't know what someone else, I mean, there's times where like I pitched some stuff to my agent, and she says, no, this isn't there yet, or this wouldn't work. And then you see something that comes out that's similar, and you're like, oh, it does. But at the same time, I would have been behind the time if it did come out, because they were ahead. They had already been in production for a year and a half or whatever it may. Do you find looking at the industry, and you say that the idea of like things might change over the years to come.
Yeah.
Well, I will cough as well. Do you still like? I understand that is scary and challenging, like book bans and all these things that are out there. But there's also like part of me, and I don't know what the answer is for you or the answer is for everybody out there, of this, like, the tide will turn the other direction at some point. And there's this question of like, do I run away from it, or do I try to fight it and get it to a point wherein maybe it's less of a or it hits a threshold where that is no longer a concern? Because I understand the sentiment of like, when do you cut bait? When does the uphill battle of Sisyphus, or whatever you want to say, get in the way of your enjoyment of actually making? Not necessarily like the viability, but the enjoyment. And if you're having to worry about stuff like that every day, that's taxing.
Yeah.
There's other things in life that you can do with your artwork that may change, or that might allow with you to have less of a crisis on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, it's real. And I think like kind of accidentally I've become a professional minority, which was like never really the plan. I do like 90% Jewish books for whatever reason, which is, which is great. I love being Jewish. Certainly, worse problems to have, but it's kind of funny right now when maybe you've been selected to represent a specific group of people, and I think for me, my big question right now about publishing is like, how is the DEI initiatives going to affect cultural books, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's going to happen to specific imprints that have an emphasis on, diversity or unique perspectives, or minority voices, quote unquote. And, even, to be candid, like I'm trying to pitch a book right now, and like I do have a kind of worry, like, what is the sellability right now of something that might get banned?
Yeah, it's interesting. The Crick group that I'm in, there's a lovely lady named Vita Lane, who's also a Kidlit illustrator, and she works in the education, like her day job is working at an educational software packet I don't even think it's digital. It may be traditional of some sort, but that's her day job. And we were talking about sort of the changes in education and how that affects things. And because their sales are in states that maybe are a little less lenient, put it that way. Like, are they planning for it? Because they have like a 4-year production time, and who knows where things are going to be at. And it's what I found really fascinating, sort of hearing the tale, was that idea of the length of time at which it will take. And then you go back and look at something like a picture book, that it's 2 years down the line, maybe 3 years, depending on sort of the publisher or how backlogged you are, or things of the sort. And then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, well, maybe this is something wherein it seems like it's a worry today, and at that time it's not going to be an issue, but you don't know, or vice versa. Maybe it'll be worse. Who knows? And I will say I live a fairly privileged life, because cisgendered white male, I don't really fight the same battles, but I also want to be empathetic to those situations where people like you even mentioning the idea, like you do a lot of books that are inherently tied to the Jewish faith. I also don't want you to have to be the spokesperson for an entire culture, or do you have to worry about those kinds of things? And maybe you just want to make fun books, but like all of a sudden you're in this environment, and like there's so much stuff that gets thrown into this that is outside of the realm of what you were prepared for, or I was prepared for, or anybody was prepared for when we were going to art school going, hey, I want to make pretty pictures.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, there's this heavy stuff that comes into play that could affect your life in a way, is nuts.
Yeah. And I do remember there still being a very, I guess one of the benefits of the second time around of this presidency, I guess we'll call it, is we kind of already have a blueprint of how it looked the first time. And to some degree, like, publishing didn't collapse. We still had a lot of really beautiful and meaningful books being published during that time. And it tends to be a pretty liberal industry in general.
I also think the age range that we're dealing with too tends to be less of a concern. Obviously, there is a concern there with certain books getting banned, but I also think that, like, your market is not the schools in the same way as a like middle grade potentially. This is much more a market towards the parents who are buying, and luckily the people who buy books tend to, and I could be wrong, but the people who buy books tend to be pro book.
Yeah. That's a pretty bold statement, but
I don't know. I'm throwing it out there.
I don't know about all that. No, I totally agree. I think the thing I'm not really even worried about publishers being like, I'm more so worried about the market being changed because of it, and people being like, well, we're really worried about book bans right now. So or we're waiting for the next year to figure out, like, even what, like, tariffs on paper looks like, and things like that. The first time
the pandemic, going through the pandemic and dealing with the idea of, like, paper and sort of supply chain issues. I mean, I have a feeling it will hit in some way. That, the sad part is we can't predict any of it. But man, we got into a heavy topic.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. This is there's people watching who probably are going like, this is the stuff that is weighing on their mind in the same way. So I think there's value to it. It's just, it got dark.
I know. I mean, I think it's been really on my mind because I've never written a book during the day. I have, like, really bad insomnia, and I wrote a manuscript I really, really liked a couple of days ago, and the two main characters are voles, and they're both boys, and they're married, but it's not about it, it's a happenstance, and it's funny time to be like, and I think it's a delicate balance between just being like, I care, and also who cares, someone will be very happy to have a story about gay moles, and that's just the truth of, you're so right. The people who buy books are people who are pro book, and statistically speaking, the people who buy books tend to lean more liberal too. And that, I'm grateful for, specific kinds of books, but
there's going to be someone out there that will dislike that book, but you're not making the book for them. You're making it for the people that are, or that can see beyond the what I want to say, like, not necessarily the what's the word I'm looking for? They can see beyond the like the hype or the news media, the headlines, and go, oh, there's a value in this. And I don't want to play to the lowest common denominator.
No.
Now, admittedly, I make fart and poop books. So I'm not necessarily in the same category. I'm not like, ooh, if mine's going to be banned, it's going to be banned because some kid was saying poop too much in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so I'm not in that same ballpark. But the sentiment or the empathetic side of me goes, I want to be there side by side fighting the same fight.
Yeah. with your poop
Yeah,
book in
yeah,
hand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Making fart noises in the background the whole time.
Yeah.
But
No, of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't give me a megaphone. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That'd be a bad idea. Like, where's that noise coming from? It's like, it's Mark again.
Oh, it's Mark again. Yeah, on the trombone.
Just a trombone. Not even like real fart noise. It's just trombone noises the whole time. So I want to go back because there was that question early on, and I want to make sure that I sort of answer it because I don't. Hopefully, the person's still here. About sort of the dummy book, and they asked about me with the collage stuff, and I'm going to answer that real quick. But I also want to talk on your end about sort of like the process and the dummy and the sort of learning that curve, because that's not necessarily something that like is easily taught all the time, some of the nuances of it. But to answer that question was from someone named, where is it? Aaron, I'm assuming Perez, but it's Aaron and then PRZ. And the idea of like collage or building a dummy book, like I'm working with the material, you're working with paint. And obviously when you make a dummy book, I'm guessing you are not painting your dummy book, correct? You're drawing lines, or you're doing something that is a sort of similar sort of design choices, but not necessarily a similar finished aesthetic. And so like when I'm doing the collage stuff, I'm making a guess as to what the finish will look like. And so it's making decisions on like, oh, it will have some lines that look basically like this, or it will be, designed where it will be a shape over here and a shape over here. And I have to acknowledge and say to the, in this case, when I sent off that dummy book, I basically said, to the effect of, this is going to change. It's going to change during the making process. And I assume the same happens for you, even though you can go print out your stuff on that lovely printer that you have, you're going to make decisions on the fly, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's a fine line, because sometimes publishers or art directors are like, wow, what a great change. And sometimes they're like, what the heck? That is not what we asked for. Yeah. So quick question for you. Do your dummies look like the sketches that you just showed me of the Itsy Bitsy Spider? Do you want to?
I'll show you. I have some dummy pages over here for a book that's coming out. I'll show those real quick. Like in comparison to what the finish looks like.
Yeah, I'm curious.
What it matches. The problem is finding one that matches here. Give me a second. I'm like trying to pull through. Basically, I have stashes of stuff in my studio here, and I'm trying to hunt down the best example I can. Let's do maybe this. I can get it out. It sounds like I'm struggling. I'm just trying to get tape. So if you look on the screen right now, this is the type of sketch that I would hand in for that came out like this. So it's pretty close. He is
cute. Yeah. I love his design. So this is,
it's pretty close, and I actually do a graphite transfer.
Okay.
But in doing that, like things like the footprints might be a little bit different. Like I didn't even do footprints in this because it didn't make sense to do it where it was. Or the equivalent of some of the shadows end up being digital things, or, arms end up being a little bit different, or my drawings in these frames I wasn't accurate with. So there's an accuracy level that happens in the paint that I just don't get in the drawing like this. Now the collage stuff is way wilder than this.
No.
Like that makes something that is more along the lines of what you're seeing with something like these, like abstract sort of treatment. Now we're only in the thumbnails, but I did my dumb little spider there. I did tell them though, I don't want to go more than that.
Okay. And they just said,
fine. And they seem to be okay with it.
Yeah.
I think the problem, and I don't know if this happens for you, but my perception of what they need for clarity is different than what they actually need. So I oversell too often. And I put too much detail in. And I'm trying to pull back on that because of the collage aspect, because of the like paint by number aspect.
Sure.
That I don't want to fall prey to. I'm just doing the same, like I'm just replicating something that I've already done.
Yeah. I've definitely fallen in that trap sometimes because I think when you first start out, you do have to have really clear dummies.
Yes.
Because you are proving yourself, and they don't. I mean, the first book. So the first dummy I ever worked on was before music, and I did it all. I did the entire sketches all traditionally, which I do not recommend at all. It was a crazy decision on my part. Yes. So I don't think I have them on my studio right now. I wish I did. So go to the first page if you can with the hand.
Which one? This one?
No.
Oh,
keep going.
The actual.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So like that, for instance, I had to like completely redo that figure, and then I just had to, and for whatever reason, I also decided to draw them the size of the book. So
Okay.
I just never done it before. So I was like, oh, it's gotta be like this, I guess. That was a huge mistake. Now I do them all on my iPad. Actually, I'll grab it really quick. And I haven't like sold this or anything, so I think it's fine to sell or to show. I'm pitching a book right now. And here, if I can do this. Oops. I hope I didn't delete the sketches. It's like you can have a sketch. It's like the sketches first start out like this. It's like you can see what's going on. It's like you can guess that's a picture frame, that's a goat, these are candlesticks. Yeah. But I think I also right now I'm trying to be like, I really want to like enjoy the painting stage of finishing a book. And when every picture frame is filled in, I'm like, oh, there's where's the excitement,
I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like, in doing that pig book or the piggy bank book, which will, the publisher there does often want a lot of clarity. They're like, okay, can you move this over? It doesn't quite look the exact same. Can you, and I understand there's reasons for it, but I also think there's a threshold where it's like, okay, you got to give me a little faith here that I'm going to make decisions that are going to be beneficial to the book. And they do in the end. Like, I've come to them and basically said, I'm doing this and that's that. And they go, yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get to a point in my career where I felt safe doing that. And that's only been recently, to be honest. They're like, okay, not that I have clout, but it's like, I'm not a newbie to this.
Yeah.
Let me play a little, and if it's wrong, I'll redo it. Yeah.
I hear that. It's not clout isn't the right word. It's you have books behind you now. And I kind of have been feeling similarly. I'm working on my 8th book right now, and it really wasn't it wasn't until this book that I was asked something by an art director where I kind of was like, no, I don't want to do that. And she was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. So here, let me ask it. First of all, 8 books is crazy because I feel like you just graduated yesterday. But
thank you.
Yeah, you're still very young.
Yes, I'm almost 30, but I know.
Yeah. Did you come to the school thinking you were going to be a photographer?
I did. And I'm really glad I'm not, because I didn't want to do wedding photography, and that is like, where so much of photography is, and Okay.
I remembered, like, all of a sudden it hit me, like, I remember when they do the, like, here's the artwork of the incoming students, and you were a transfer, if I remember correctly, and I remember seeing the photo, and then all of a sudden you were in illustration, and I was like, wait a second, okay, what's going on here? Okay, anyways, outside of that, what was I saying? 8 books, the clout. Okay, here's the thing I was going to say. I also think, and this is, I think, a sort of relatively true statement um, for folks who are coming out of a program that you have stuff done on a weekly basis, like a college
Yeah.
class.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes it's a crit where the whole group says, you need to change this, this, and this. And so you change it to meet the expectations of the class. And there's not a lot of, I mean, there should be in the crit. And I've tried to adjust my crits as I've aged. So it's less of a, here's a statement of what you need to do. And instead is more of a question of, well, do you think it would work better?
Mm-hmm.
This, or would
Yeah.
what do you think would happen if you did A, B, or C
Yeah.
versus you need to do A, B, or C? And so I think some of that is like when you get out into an industry like Kidlit and you hear someone say, well, what would happen if we change this? That immediately I used to hear, oh, you got to change this. Like I dropped the what would happen, or do you think we could move this over to this side? And I would lose the do you think, and it would just say move this over to your side. And so like there was this disconnect in my brain
Yeah.
of like, what are they actually asking? And, or not even what are they asking, but are they even asking or are they telling?
Yeah.
And does that register in the same way for you? Like, did you have that same struggle?
Yeah. And it wasn't until this book that, and maybe some of it is like they were very upfront, this publisher, and was just like, hey, we're like a relatively new company, or we're a relatively new publisher. So like there is some flexibility.
Yeah.
And hearing that, I was like, oh. And so it wasn't anything major. It was just about some background decisions, like what the setting should be. And, it's not really giving anything away. It starts in a city and then goes a little slowly more like rural.
Yeah.
And initially they just wanted it to be backwards. They wanted it to start rural and then go into a city. And I basically was like, I actually think it's higher drama the other way around. And they were great about it.
Yeah.
And
they have
yeah.
for a reason. They want to.
Yeah. I think you just have to kind of tell yourself a lot. Like, they hired me for a reason, And some of it is like you're always making editing choices, and like you're always going to know your art best, and it's hard to remember that sometimes.
Now, tell me a little bit. Like, I don't even know. Sometimes I start out with this question. It's a pretty basic question that artists get. But sort of tell me sort of the start for art for you, because obviously, like I mentioned, you came in thinking photography, but
Sure.
is your family art prone?
No, not at all. No, I don't. I'm not like. No, I'm kind of the black sheep of the family, but not really in a negative way. I think my dad and my mom are both very creative people, but they aren't artists.
Okay.
And my dad especially, something I really appreciate about him is he always wants things to look pretty. Like he always wanted the yard to look pretty. He always was like interested in decorating the house. And so I do think I get a lot of my creativity from him, but I really didn't start. I loved to draw as a kid. I remember I used to sit and watch the Westminster dog shows with our two beagles.
Okay.
And I would like sit and draw the dogs. And like, this was when you would have, was it TiVo? Is that right?
Yep.
DVR.
Yep.
And like, I would like sit and like pause the dogs I liked and would like try to draw them, and then like, keep going with that. And, then I hit middle school and a little bit of high school. And I became a little less interested. I have dyslexia and ADHD, and so
you went into books.
I went into books, and I became a librarian, and and I learned a different language, and because I do love language despite it all, and I think that I just had a period where I really struggled to kind of do anything that wasn't school when I didn't, before getting diagnosed. And then in high school, I became more interested in art again. I got really interested in photography because it was really accessible. And I was really lucky. My high school had a dark room. and I loved the process. I loved the smell. It was great. And then as you know, I think at this point, when I was a senior in high school, I was getting my library card at the library I ended up working at. And kind of off the cuff, the librarian, Bonnie Angeles, was like, "So you're going to college next year. What do you think you want to study?" And I hadn't really even thought about it that much, but I was like, "Oh, maybe children's book illustration."
Uh-huh.
And Jill Weber
Yep.
popped her head around the corner and said, "What's that? Children's book illustration? I'm a children's book illustrator."
Wait, she was
And
at the library you were
at
at
the
the time?
library, and she was getting an audiobook for a book that she was working on at the time. And in her stern kind of Jill way, she was like, "Here's my number, but contact me and come over and show me your work." And at 17, I was like, "Oh, I don't really have a lot of work. I just like have some sketchbooks and stuff." And we really hit it off. She's still one of my closest friends. I love Jill very, very much. And I started doing some work for her where I would trace her illustrations onto like the finishing paper, and we would sit together and we would have coffee for like an hour first, and this would happen maybe like once every 2 weeks or something. And really all through school, even when I left school, she really encouraged me and really believed in me in a way that, my parents definitely did not understand the art school thing. Very understandably, if you're like, "Mother, father, I'm going to school during a recession. How do you think about me becoming an artist?" I don't think that they were super
Yeah.
thrilled at first, but since then they've become very supportive. And
Once you got your first contract, all of a sudden, like,
yeah, and now once I've called them, 6 or 7 or 8 times and been like, "I have a book deal," and they're becoming like increasingly less excited. They'll be like, "Oh, that's nice.
yeah.
Hey, did you end up hearing from your aunt about this thing yet?" And you're like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I see it's less
Now,
exciting."
have you dedicated books to them yet? That's the
My parents, I
okay.
have. I dedicated one to my parents, and I did dedicate one to Jill too.
Okay, I was gonna say, you gotta dedicate. That's the way to get them on your
I
side.
That's what I said. It was when they were writing the will, so I knew I really had to get in
Yeah.
there. I hope they're not watching.
You took it to a dark place again, real quick.
No. No. And I think since then, I feel like I did really learn how to love drawing in school because I knew I liked illustration, but I also could not draw to save my life. And so I think that I kind of took a bit of a roundabout way to get, like, as a kid, I never was like, "I'm going to be an artist when I grow up." I was like, "I'm going to be a dog trainer who also is a mermaid." And neither of those things came true.
You
But
got pretty close with the dog toy,
that's
though.
true. That's true. And I've done a little bit of trading Ginny, I suppose. But no one hold me to that standard,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about illustration that it's the art form that really works for me, and I'm glad that it really stuck. I know a lot of people in school really take a long time to figure out what they want to do, and I feel like once I figured it out, I kind of was like, I can't really imagine myself doing anything else
Yeah.
other than maybe teaching how to do this.
So let me ask you, and this is because obviously, like, we've sort of been, or at least I have been sort of following what you've been doing throughout the years and things of this.
Yeah, and I've been following.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We are peers. We are, like, I know that, like, we have the student professor relationship, but you've been out for 8 years, and it's like there is a threshold where it becomes less of like, "Oh, you're a former student," and more of like, "Oh, you're stealing my jobs." Yeah, all that fun stuff. But you've hit 8 books, or you're working on 8 books at this point. And one of the questions I've asked people in the past, and I haven't asked in a while, is sort of, how do you measure success as a creator? Because obviously you can go and you can say, like, "Oh, it's once you hit this many books, or once you get this kind of paycheck, or things of that sort. But there's also other things that are maybe less, what do I say, like pragmatic, that can come into play. I'm wondering, sort of in your case, like obviously what you wanted to do when you walked out the door of school and when you were first met Jill or these people, like obviously you've sort of accomplished some of that.
Yeah.
If not gone beyond it at this point. And I'm wondering, like, do you see what you've done as success? Do you see, I mean, obviously there's room for growth. There's always
Yeah.
going to be that.
Yeah.
But have you ever had a chance to sit back and reflect and say, man, this has been a fun ride, and I'm so glad that I'm on this, you know, this whatever roller coaster that life is, or that being an illustrator is?
So I guess, okay, so the first question is, how do you measure success?
Yes. How do you measure success? And
for
then
me, I think it's been, so my first, like when I first graduated, I was like, I want to get 3 books by 30. That was like really my goal. And I'm very grateful. I got that very quickly. I got 3, I think, before 24. And which I feel very proud of. I don't think that's very common. And so I think I had to really change my metric quick of, it's not about the work you get, it's about the work you love, I guess. And I think that what I now think of as success is, am I getting projects that I'm excited about and that I'm saying yes to because I want to do them versus I need to do them? Or is the ratio of loving to do them more than the ones that I need to do? Because I do eat food and I do have rent. So I'll always have books I'm taking to some degree that I'm like, I have to find the joy in it rather than it being given to me.
Yep.
And yeah, there is really something really fun about that equation still. Like I'm working on a book right now that I painted my first city scene and I loved it. That was a huge surprise to me. I painted my first like steamboat, my first car interior. Like there were so many things that I was like, I would have really never had the opportunity otherwise. Like I would have never painted a steamboat. Well, that's not true. I probably wouldn't have though. Life's a long time.
I just like that is a marker of a steamboat. Well, I mean, it's funny because I don't, and obviously my connection to you is through the school in a sense, and
Sure.
like my perception of what you have done in your career is slightly biased to my experience in the classroom, but I wouldn't imagine, like right off the bat, like again, oh, you're going to be drawing steamboats.
No, I didn't either.
But
and that was something you said all of the time in school that I still think about, is like, you don't get to pick what you draw for jobs. And like 9 times out of 10, that is absolutely true until you do. And you're like, yeah, this rules. Now it's poop and fart jokes all of the way.
I have such a reputation with that now, that the amount of students that make, oh, well, here's a fart. Like I accidentally was trying to say something like art today, and I was trying to say something of art, and it came out as a fart. And of course, everybody goes in and says, of course, I'm the one that says that.
Yeah, bummer.
And it's like, I have a reputation now to that kind of thing. I don't know if I want to uphold that reputation though.
Yeah,
but
I don't see why, but all right.
I'm dumb. I get it, but
I get.
And I don't. I'm proud of it, but it's funny. Like we all have these things that are like quintessentially us. That like, seeing you go out there and draw moles and bowls and what's the one that I was thinking about doing today? It's like those. It's a it's not shrew.
Vole? No.
Echidna?
What's
What's an echidna?
I now that you're saying that I don't know. I don't think that's it. Is it does it have a long nose?
I think so.
Maybe it is a shrew. Maybe it is an echidna. I don't know.
I don't know, but it's like those are the things where I'm like, you know, who's going to be an expert at drawing those is going to be Madison.
I feel
Like
the same way.
Your realm, and just like someone looks at me and goes, "Okay, here's the fart joke. Give it to Mark."
I mean, like maybe, but I mean, your work has always been very smart still, and I think that poop jokes aside, like, so, sorry to the audience.
Yeah.
I also think of your work as being someone where you could be like, we're writing a book about taxes for kids.
Yeah.
And I think you would do a great job with what a boring subject still.
If I can put a little toot in there,
yeah,
then I'm good.
Yeah, then you're good. Then life's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm gonna go back a little bit, and I wanna talk about sort of your aesthetic, your style.
Oh, sure.
Obviously, like I know that you have some folky sort of like interest that springs up in your work. Totally makes sense. You can see it, and sort of where it pops up and things of the sort. But how did you come to that approach? Because there's so many different and I'm trying to get away from the word style and use voice, but basically what I mean by style is something that's more than just a superficial treatment on top of the idea.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. How did you come to your version of that?
I think when I was in school, I thought style was the same as subject matter. And that was something I really appreciated about your classes and I mean classes in general, but I really specifically remember your classes being good at this of like, what does treatment look like with different subject? Because I also agree. I was surprised when I got a book where someone was like, draw a steamboat. And like, I also am really flattered that people can see the way that I draw like moss and are like, this person also has range. And the first two books I worked on definitely felt, I was really surprised the first two books I worked on were nonfiction books. And some of that, I think, so voice, I think I do agree is kind of a better word.
Yeah.
I think, how do I say? I think that it's a trap of illustrations. It's both a trap, but I also think can be helpful to think about like, what is the world I want to build around my work? And I think when I first was thinking about style, I was really looking at a lot of contemporaries. I loved Carson Ellis when I was in school, and I still really love her work too. I just, there's other people who I really love just as much now. And, I just remember being like, I don't like, I have no idea how I'm going to like ever, get there, and and very few of us do, I suppose. But, I really remember, I also think this was you probably in school, I have to imagine, being like, look at the original sources. And I think when I graduated, my work became a lot better because I started looking 40, 50, 100 years in the past instead of really focusing on what contemporaries were doing, which, don't get me wrong, I also think there's a lot of benefit too. I mean, I'm really grateful to live in a time where the internet can show me like what people are doing. Sometimes I feel more grateful than others, but generally speaking, like, we have an amazing encyclopedia of visuals at our hands all of the time. And like, such a gift. And I really became more interested in checking out books from the library and like getting really down to the sources. And now when I do research, I'm mostly looking at a lot of Eastern European art. whether it's contemporary or not, because that tends to be the aesthetic that I'm really interested in. And so like when I'm deciding patterns, you know, I think another thing I I still struggle in the age of the internet is being like, you don't want to copy someone,
Yep.
you know, a lot of ways, sometimes it's like, it feels like the biggest sin one can commit on the internet. I don't really actually feel that way. I'm very flattered when people copy my work, to be honest. Like, I'm kind of the mindset of there's room for everyone, you know, just like tag me so I can see it. I love to see when people are inspired or, you know, do replicas. Like that's great. Um, but I think the thing I realized later on, and you know, after post graduation, is like copying is actually a great way to learn. And you know, I have, you know, pages and pages and pages of sketchbooks of like looking at, you know, like Ukrainian like sweater designs or weavings of, and like looking at those kinds of patterns and like how to incorporate them. And so for me, style kind of became like, how do I give an homage to the things that inspire me?
Yeah.
I don't know, does that
Is
make
it? No, it
sense?
does. I think like I know that the idea of looking back into history and looking outside of sort of the contemporaries, like even looking at Eastern European, you're in a world, and so am I, that is essentially influenced so heavily right now with Western sort of market and commercial aspects.
Yeah.
The what do they call that?
Like marketable viability or
Yeah, what's the there's a term I'm thinking of, like let the market sort it out kind of
uh,
situation.
oh, sure,
Um,
sure, sure.
and you know, in reality, you go look at some of those books that are either historical or in a landscape that is not the world that we're in, and all of a sudden you start to go like, oh, there's so much stuff that is out there that I could do that is wildly different, or is, you know, something I wouldn't normally run into a bookstore and see on a regular basis here.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I didn't even realize that was an option, or that was something I could do, as you know, whether it be for the career or whether it be for um, the the you know, just an aesthetic choice in certain instances. It's that is where you're going to probably gain the most, because you're sort of stepping outside of the bounds or the world that you're used to, or the world that is easily viable for you on an everyday basis. um, I don't know, I like looking,
Hmm.
I can totally, now that you mentioned the sort of Eastern European like uh vibe, I'm like, okay, I can see where that sort of pops up in your work. And
Yeah.
not in the sense of like, oh, I see how you're taking from that, but more so I can just totally, I understand the sort of the markers or the icons and the textures and the sort of like compositions and things that you're doing that sort of harken to a time from before.
Yeah. You know, I love Eastern European storytelling. Like, I love that it's kind of sweet and jarring at the same time. You know, there's something very like Hamish, but also a little unsettling.
Yeah.
And I think that and being in children's books, I think something that sometimes you have to fight against is like overly cutifying things. And I think both of us, and when I think of your work too, is like, I don't think of you as being a cutesy illustrator. And you know, maybe I'm higher on the cutometer. Um, but I think that that reference has really helped kind of bring a little bit of um, unusualness, maybe
Yeah.
is the word I'm
Just
looking
sort of
for.
again, that the idea of like breaking from expectation, I think, is
Yeah,
so important in all of this. And finding, sorry, I'm cutting paper in the background, it's really loud.
yeah,
But finding an opportunity to do something that's unexpected in the market that you're playing in.
yeah.
I
It's yeah.
it
It's funny that you kind of say like old world. You know, it's something I hear a lot from editors is they're like, we don't want it to look like it's in the shtetl. you know, which is like village Jewish villages from Eastern Europe. And like I do have to be careful of that, especially when you're like in the market that I'm in. But I also do want to still nod to some of
Yeah,
that like, you know, it's
it will.
I like there's some of the influence and like some of that it's like that's how some of my house looks. That's, you know, like it's okay for things to be a little bit confusing, I think, and especially when you're working in with like animals or fairy tale-esque things to not have it to be like, you know, totally
It also
clear.
wouldn't be true to you if you're trying to alter that to
Yeah.
a certain extent and say like, oh, I can't put this in here because one person. I mean, effectively, and I don't know if this is true, but uh, you're hearing that from one person. There's probably 10 other people who are going, I want to see that.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
true. Yeah. This summer I did a Yiddish intensive, which I'll be doing again this summer. And part of that is, you know, and part of developing the aesthetic, the visual aesthetic, I really am interested in also the like linguistic aesthetic of, you know, Eastern European culture. And like one of my biggest goals now as an illustrator is to like find um a Yiddish story, you know, that was written, you know, post or pre-modernity, I suppose, and be able to like find a way to translate it now to be
yeah,
more contemporary.
that's I. There's part of me that um, wants that same thing of like, how do you take something that is old and like there's a book that I sent off to my agent that I wrote that I haven't dummied out of any sort, but I've done like
Sure.
a rough visual for, and it is, and this is sort of that same ballpark. It's in a different sentiment, but it's like I went back and looked at. Uh, Again, I'll go back to me being a cisgendered white male,
Sure.
uh, and like
Sure.
I don't
We don't hold
I
it
don't have
against you.
a deep cultural history. I can go like check this out. Um, but I do have a German background, and I started to look at like, okay, what is German folklore? What are things that are tied to that? Not that I'm the most German person or anything. I don't know how to speak German or Germanic languages of any sort.
Sure.
Uh, but at the same time, I looked at it and said, okay, how can I find something that is from that sort of um, realm and really play into it in a way wherein it allows me to do some interesting things that I wouldn't normally do. That's not just poops and farts and whatnot. I'm like giving I'm like crapping on myself. uh, but looking back at history and looking back at what's been done and saying, okay, how do I bring that into a world that may not know or doesn't quite understand the history? And I did find an idea that I thought was really fascinating, that I was like, it's not anything that I ever practiced, but a old historic sort of tradition that I can say, okay, what would be my take on this historic tradition? And I came up
Yeah.
with what's there, and I'm really happy with it. It's a matter of just, can I package it in a form that is um, legitimate for the audience that needs to see it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Um, do you find there's like thinking about the the going back and looking at history and trying to sort of not necessarily replicate, but put it in a format that is understandable to a certain age, an audience of sorts.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's like challenges beyond just like, they have an old timey phone and now they have a cell phone? Uh, like,
Yeah.
what are the things that you, when doing that, you look at and you go like, oh, okay, how do I make this modern without necessarily putting in modern technology or modern slang? You don't want everybody saying skibidi through the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, you do
Oh,
actually want everyone
okay.
saying,
I'm
yeah.
off. Okay.
That's how I've
Sigma.
heard it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know what sigma means. I hope it doesn't mean something bad, but
Yeah, no, I did a art program in an after school at a Waldorf school near here, and I also had to ask one of the students what skibidi meant, and they just kind of scoffed and rolled their eyes. So I was like, okay, I'm leaving my 20s. I see. Okay. Um,
Not cool
um,
anymore.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that never really was the case, which I'm totally fine with. So the question is, how do you make, how do you, how do
Sounds like
you reference?
the question in front of us.
Moving on. So the question is like, how do you make something feel both modern and also
Yeah. How do you take something old and make it modern without making it kitschy?
That is such a good question. I think visually, what I found is color is a huge aid in that. Like for me, so this like comes up in really two places of both my life and my work, right? When I told people I was learning Yiddish, they kind of were like, that's stupid. No one speaks Yiddish anymore. And even my dad, who was Jewish, was like, oh yeah, you're gonna go to the grave and talk to all the dead people there in Yiddish. And like I, I understand where people are coming from, that like of course it's less practical than something like Spanish, where a large portion of the world speaks it. But like I believe that Yiddish has a modern context and a modern aesthetic. And that there's words that are still being discovered and translated for a modern context. Like there's a word in Yiddish for cell phone, you know? And that is like a testament to the language still being alive. And I think that's also true of a visual narrative of, you know, things like fairy tales or old stories, or um, even like the way that we oftentimes think about like an Eastern European aesthetic as being something kind of antiquated. I do, I think that the way that you can make it modern doesn't necessarily have to be making everything neon. It's just like, how do you take some of those colors and like amplify them, exaggerate, like taking some of the shapes and um yeah, giving them a little bit of different treatment, so you kind of are having your feet in both worlds. So it's still relatable, but it's not necessarily alien. It's not too distant.
Yeah.
Does that make
Now,
sense?
you're not allowed to say that there's a Yiddish word for cell phones without giving us the Yiddish word for cell phone.
Oh, it's mobilke.
It's what?
Mobilke.
Mobilke?
Mobilke, like mobile.
Okay. I see
Yeah.
someone also wrote, what is skibidi in Yiddish?
Oh, probably still Skibidi.
Yeah. It's probably not that much of a shift there.
Yeah.
It's like when someone's speaking, and then all of a sudden they in a different language and they throw in Coca-Cola and it ends up being Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
It's not that far removed. Okay, so someone Silamanders? Yeah, Silamanders says, would you ever illustrate a spooky, scarier folklore?
Yeah, I mean, if someone hired me to do it, I don't see why not. Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I totally would. I mean,
I feel like your work would translate great.
My work would be weird spooky, not gory spooky or anything of the sort. But
Sure.
it's going to be a little strange in some manner, just because of that's the way that I operate.
Yeah.
But I do think that I would absolutely tackle something that's a little weird or out there.
Spooky is hard for kids. I mean, you never know what's going to scare kids.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've always said in classes, and I think sort of holds true, is spooky is subjective, or scary is subjective, or horrific is subjective. And so the reference point I always make, and this probably hits harder for you now, what is scary to me is not blood and guts and a knife and things of that sort. What's scary to me is the idea that I miss a mortgage payment, or that I accidentally miss 2 bills in a row and my credit score goes down. Like, that's scary at this point. Not, oh, did someone have a knife in an image, or like a scary movie. Those are fantastical or farcical in a way compared to some of the real life situations that we're in. And so like for a little kid, scary might be literally just like a new school, or, you know, having to find someone to sit with at lunch might be just as scary to them as someone jumping out of a you know, wherever, trying to rile them up.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, again, it's interesting to sort of think about like how far am I willing to take my aesthetic or my approach. And I think the same thing for you, like the idea of you doing was it a city?
Yeah.
You know, like there's a, like, is that the thing that you're known for? No, but
No.
your twist on a city is going to be your city. It's not going to be the city that everybody's expecting. It's not going to be the city that is, you know, the like quintessential like metal skyscrapers left and right. My guess is your city is going to have some old world architecture still in it.
Sure.
Your city is going to have that vibe that sort of plays into the sort of your interests in some way.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting because they were like, we want the city to be Long Island. So it was a really specific city.
Wait. Okay. Yeah, that's, so it's not like skyscrapers.
Well,
does Long Island have skyscrapers?
I don't know. It starts, so okay, I guess it started in Long Island and then moved its way through New York.
Okay. I don't know Long Island enough beyond like certain aspects of it, and I just don't think of it as like skyscraper city, but maybe it does, and I'm just clueless to it. But I'm used to shore for Long Island more so than like city aspect, especially
I've never been to Long Island.
What was that?
But I've actually never been to Long Island, so I will take your word for it.
I've never been to Long Island either. I've just seen video and images, and that's all I got.
Wow. See, another reason to love the web, you know?
I'm not going to Long Island. I don't have any interest. If you're from Long Island, deal with it. I'm not going. Let me ask you a little bit about sort of so books come out.
Yes.
You have all these books that you worked on, and then all of a sudden they enter the real world, and they're no longer just a thing that sits at your studio desk. It's no longer a thing that's in an email that you send to an art director. It's a tangible object. People buy those books. They're on shelves. That library that you worked at, I'm sure, has a copy of it.
They do, yes.
What's the general vibe, the gist that you get from sort of that new experience, or that things becoming tangible and real in a way?
What vibe? Good question. I mean, have you ever walked into a bookstore you didn't know sold your book?
Yes.
It's like the most ego fueling feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. I remember the first time it happened to me, I was at Toadstool Bookstore in Peterborough. Oh no, it was the one in Keene, doesn't matter. And which it's a great bookstore if anyone is listening from New Hampshire, check it out. And I was so excited. I had to go up to the person at the register, and I was just like, excuse me, I illustrated this. And the person it was very polite, but also was like, oh, good job.
Who cares?
Yeah. They were, I could tell they really put on a nice face. But it is a feeling like nothing else, especially because they come out so much later than after you work on it. That sometimes you're even like, oh, I forgot about this guy, So it's great. I mean, the best is not to be too corny, but it's when you see kids reading it. You're like, whoa, you're doing the thing that it's made for.
Let me ask you this question. When you go into bookstores now, do you still look for books?
Oh yeah, every time.
That's the one that I still do, and I'm always like, they're gonna have something probably, and then they have nothing, and I have this moment of oh man, They don't have it.
Yes. Yeah, it's also a very humbling feeling, of
Yes.
course. Yeah. No, I don't think people go into children's book illustration for the clout of it
Yeah.
all. If you're looking to have an ego boost, this is, find another job.
Now,
I
as much as I love his work, I will say it is a little like uh, off-putting to me that I walk into the store and there's a whole like 10 shelves related to Mo Willems.
Oh, I
And I'm
know.
like, I can't even have one of mine.
Yeah, come on, Mel.
No.
Just give us
Yeah.
one slot.
His stuff is amazing, but there's still part of me that just like, oh, like I just a little section on that shelf. Not that
Yeah, I
I'll
get it.
that way, but
That that's why I tend to more look at when I'm in a library. That's usually when I find my stuff because those big books, like those are hard sells for just at-home books.
yes.
Because they take up a lot of space. And I mean, I love it. I mean, kids love a big book,
Librarians don't.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they also take up a lot of space. But, almost every library that I've been to in this area has at least, one of them, and that's a really good feeling. I think for me, especially at libraries, because I'm like, that means the foot traffic is a lot higher, which hopefully means more people are reading them.
Yeah, it's not about the sales at that point. It's about
Yeah.
the heart of it and getting people to see it and be excited by it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not very driven by royalties, to be honest. I feel like royalties tend to be kind of a hard thing to make back often.
Have
Harder
you seen royalties at all yet? Like, have you earned out?
No, I don't think so.
It's I forget what the percentage. I remember I read somewhere like what percentage actually earn royalties versus don't, and it was a shockingly like low number.
Yeah.
Of books, like percentage wise, how many books you need in order to finally hit one that hits royalties.
Yeah.
And like I've had a couple that have earned out, but keep in mind some of them that have earned out, you think like, oh wow, you're making money off it. Like, yeah, tiny little checks here and there. It's not. It's a fortune that's pouring in every day.
Yeah, you're not like it's like, oh, $25.
Yeah.
Great. I can't wait to fill up half of my tank.
20, you can get $25?
Yeah.
I haven't even gotten that.
Yeah, me either. So whatever.
It's a game that is sounds like it's really cool to play, but in reality, like, yeah, most people don't make royalties off of books, and then you have to start thinking about advances and what an advance means and how much. This is all shop talk that all the people out there are going boring.
Yeah, probably. Sorry.
Yeah. Is there long-term goals for you in the sense of like things that you would like to accomplish? Like you said, the 3 books by a certain age.
Yeah.
Which I won't even name that age. I'll just say by.
And I don't recommend that goal for people either. Just for the rec, I don't think setting age goals is like, it was something I made when I was 20, when I was like, 30 is when I die because I'll be so brittle,
And is it true?
Yeah, I honestly, like, I woke up today with a lot of back pain, and I was like, man, 30 is when I get brittle.
Yeah, you don't say that. Yeah, it's when you get brittle, like it's some joke, because you are gonna get brittle.
No, I know it's happening. I take fish oil every day now, so if you're under 25 and listening, it's coming for you, and don't be afraid.
But now, like, looking at this like future aspect, you're in this field, you've been doing it for a while. Are there things now that you look at and you go like, okay, the next goal for me is whatever it may be, and are those things are like big goals? Are they little things? Like I have come to, someone asked me a while back, like, what would be my threshold? My threshold is I would like to be the book that, not necessarily it has to be the most popular, but like success starts to fall into that range of a book that a kid remembers as their favorite book from when they were little.
Oh, that's a really good one.
That's right. Like we all have that book. We're like, oh, this is the book I just loved when I was little. And I may never know a kid that has that affection for a specific book I've worked on, but that is a go-to for me of like, that would be a big goal for me, is to maybe someday meet one of those kids
That's
that
a really good one.
have that.
That's a good goal.
But do you have things like that you look at and you go like, oh, this is the standard bearer for success in a way going forward beyond just a book count?
I would like to have a piece in the Eric Carle.
Okay.
Just an A show, you know, even if it's like a local show. Like so that's one of them.
You do one of those
you know,
guerrilla art things where you go in and just put your work up when they're not looking.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do? Take
yeah.
it
What? Yeah. No. Yeah, I dare them.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think some of the reason is for that is like, I mean, the Eric Carle, you know, it is, I think, one of the only children's book illustration museums in the world, and they just have such a amazing curator there, and you know, they just have such amazing people come through there. So I think that's one of them for me. I think another one is I really, in the future, would like to be illustrating more books that I've written than not. And I do like illustrating other people's work. I do get a lot out of it. So I don't know that I ever want to be 100% never doing anyone else's stuff.
Yeah.
What can I say about this?
I'm gonna throw out another one that I think is like an interesting twist for me that I'm not sure if I have the answer to this or if this is like really something I'd want. But one of the things that's always fascinated me is when someone writes a book that someone else illustrates, even though the writer is an illustrator.
Yes, I do love that too.
And like, there's part of me that goes, it'd be interesting, like the value in, not necessarily, I would like to illustrate everything that I can, but I also understand, like, it'd be interesting to see someone else's take on something that I write.
Yeah.
Or writing something that is so out of my realm that is successful that would not be justified by me doing it. Like, just aesthetically, like, you know, there's like some book ideas that I have that I was thinking about the other day that like historically would have been fine in paint, but now I want to do collage. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if some of these will work in collage now. Just aesthetically, like the detail level they need versus the quirkiness and the weirdness I want to put in the books or in my aesthetic now. Like, they don't match up or link up. Does that mean it's a bad idea? Or does that mean that that's a threshold that I'd like to meet of have something that's so well written that they're willing to say, let's put someone famous to illustrate it, or someone with some other talents that I don't have.
Yeah.
And like, is that still success in a way? And I don't know the answer to that, but that is a thing that I'd like to challenge at some point for myself.
If you could pick another illustrator to illustrate a manuscript for you, I know obviously it would depend on the manuscript.
Yeah.
What are you anyone come to mind?
No.
I'm working on 3 books. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think like there's people like I really do love Sean Harris and people like that. But there's some weird like Estonian illustrators that I love. We're gonna have someone on next week. This guy named Oyvind. Oh man, I can't even. I can't remember how to say his last name. I have to ask him before we actually have my. It's not next week. It's in 2 weeks on Gavin Doodle, and he has this book. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick. That's in my stack back here. That his stuff is just so weird.
Yeah.
I would love to see what he does with it because it is so sort of foreign and different from my normal thinking. It's gonna be a second. I'm gonna keep talking, but is there someone that's on your sort of radar that, like, if you ever had to do that you would be willing to hand off?
I was hoping you weren't gonna ask that. But I understand why you did. Obviously it depends on the story. I mean, like, kind of a sentimental answer is I would love to do a book with Jill
That would be nice.
because, like, she's just such a huge reason I'm doing what I'm doing, and I love her work, and I feel like, in a long time, if she's, when she's not here with us anymore, like, that's just something I think I would hold on for a very long time, and I also would enjoy. The non like sentimental answer, Mo Willems for royalty reasons.
Yeah, you picked the right person. Hopefully you can hear me because I'm far away from the.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, you picked someone who's gonna just sell, and then you just ride that train.
Yeah. I mean, maybe another answer would be like Sophie Blackall. Is that how you pronounce her last name?
Yep.
'Cause I know that she mostly does like Milkwood or whatever these days, but I just think her work is so fabulous.
I am still searching for this book over here, and I cannot find it. And it's got to be like right in front of me this whole time. Shoot, because it's such a cool, like, weird out there book. It's probably in some other like little spot that I just can't see. Dang, that bums me out. Wait, it would be in this batch. They're sort of in like collections of, when did I get these?
Oh, sure.
If it's here, it's going to be right in this region, and I am not seeing it. Maybe it's upstairs. Dang, that's annoying. Not you're not annoying, but what I'm
No,
talking.
fine.
Anyways, just that idea of someone who's like, their work is just so like far beyond strange.
Yeah.
I want, at the same time, I also want someone who's like, yeah, I'm gonna be a little blunt here, or a little honest here. Like, someone who brings in some money ain't a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna.
Mo Willems, if you're watching, let me and Mark know.
What? What's that?
So Mo Willems, if you're watching, you know where to find me and Mark.
Hey, someday we're gonna invite him on here, and he'll say no, but we're gonna invite him.
But you can at least say that you extended the invitation.
There are some names that I am surprised that actually like entertain the idea even.
Really?
There's some names that like I've started to think like maybe we should actually ask these folks and see if they'd be willing to join us. And I say us being my wife, who helps organize a lot of this.
That's awesome. That's great to have help. Thank you to Mark's wife, whose name I don't know. What's her name?
Her name is Mrs. Hoffy online.
Mrs. Hoffy, yes.
Or as people have defined her, Mrs. Shoffy or Mr. Shoffy.
Mr. Shoffy.
They can't tell the difference of where it cuts off.
That's really funny.
Yeah, no, she is sort of the brains of some of this operation here. As
I've
said before, she's the brains, I'm the beauty.
Is she also an illustrator? Didn't you guys meet in art school?
Not in art school, but she was illustration and painting major when she was in school. And then when I worked in animation, she worked over on the educational side of the building and eventually switched to animation. And
cool. Okay.
Worked together at a certain point. But her schooling was primarily painting and illustration. And then now she's my social media whiz kid at this point. She knows how to do everything social media that I do not understand. And so she keeps me on track of like when things have to post and how to manage all of that, because otherwise I would just fall apart at the seams. So yeah, if you need social media help, don't talk to me, talk to her. She's the one that will get you the right things to do.
Oh, that was awesome.
Do you you said your partner is a puppeteer?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I have a question for you that this is sort of a loaded question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
How many voices do you hear on a regular basis at home?
Wow, I've never been asked that. That is such a good question. How many voices do I hear on a regular day at home? They do love voices. The true answer is it depends.
None if they know what's good for them.
No, I love it. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I love fun.
Okay.
Um, let's, we do a lot of reading out loud together, and both in Yiddish and also in English. And so I would say it depends if we're reading out loud that day. And it depends if they're in a good mood. And if they're in a good mood, I probably at least 5.
It's just one of those, like, when I think of a puppeteer, I feel like they're always trying out new voices and new, like, characters. I don't know.
Yeah, you're actually, it's kind of true.
I don't know, if I could put up with it, but more power to you.
Like, I also have a ridiculous job. So it really is like a ridiculous job for a ridiculous job relationship.
You trade off, yeah.
Yeah, we can trade off being very insufferable.
You come home going, man, this gnome today was just bothering the hell out of me.
Yeah, I did have this like really serious issue the other day where, air quotes, where I couldn't get this raccoon to like, he kind of had like a little booty pop in the illustration. And I was like, I can't, like, I probably spent like an hour trying to get him to like look less sassy. And like, I that night I was like, man, I had a kind of a weird day at work. Like I couldn't get this raccoon to like stop looking like so sassy, So like, we all trade off.
Okay, so I probably mentioned this when you were in school, but the fact that our job allows us to say stuff like that,
yeah,
and it actually like makes sense, is so funny to me. Like today, I was saying someone's work was flavor blasted. It made total sense because he had basically, I don't know if he's watching. Hopefully, he's not watching, but it's not like a bad thing. But he had upped the curves and the saturation to the point where it starts to get that like the pixely sort of color.
Yeah,
to be orange and yellow. And so it literally looked like there was Cheeto dust
that's
all over the work.
So funny.
Like, here I get to say, like, your work is flavor blasted for the day. And everybody goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's really real. I mean, I remember having, like, a 40-minute meeting one time about a book where they were like, should the goat's ears be floppy or pointy?
Yeah. Yeah. It's and you can't really complain about a meeting like that, even though it's sort of silly.
Yeah.
You can't. Like, or it's frivolous in some sense.
Yeah.
You can't really sit there and go like, what a day.
Yeah.
I really like worked myself to the bone talking about goat ears for the day.
Yeah. It's like it's not an easy job, but it's a job someone's got to do.
We all make sacrifices in our life.
We all make sacrifices.
Have to make those tough decisions on a daily basis.
How is go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was.
Oh, I just had a question about teaching. How is teaching been going post pandemic?
It's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and I'm not going to like badmouth the students by saying this, but I think there is a different value in education or there's a different value of what education is on both the teacher's side and the student side. Like obviously the like value in higher ed for students has become a huge deal. Am I getting the value that I put into it? And I understand that sentiment. I understand why like there is a challenge there that is not an easy thing to answer for a lot of folks. However, I will state that the thing that is probably the most challenging out of all of it is more so on my end is the expectation of homework.
Oh, interesting.
Very, very different now than what pre-pandemic was. And what I mean by that is like a lot of high schools sort of dropped a lot of homework when the pandemic hit. They started shifting away from that. And so we see that show up in the classroom of people who are not prepared for the amount of work that needs to go into a visual arts education.
Yeah, that totally makes
Yeah,
sense.
just the amount of time you got to sit in a studio and actually put into a piece. Like you might have to put in 6 hours or more into a single assignment, and students are, or like not necessarily the students I have right now, but I've seen students who have put in 30 minutes. And
Whoa.
you're not going to get the same quality, or the value for your buck as a student is being wasted by not putting in that time and effort.
No, that totally makes sense.
And so that's one of those weird, like, I don't think it's the student's fault.
No.
I don't think they're bad people or anything of the sort, but I think it's a realization of like art school is a very challenging homework environment where it's not that there's no cliff notes.
No.
And you sometimes just have to do the work. And if you're not used to pulling all-nighters, or if you're not used to doing homework, that can be a real shock in the first year specifically. Hopefully by then you figure it out and realize like, oh, I really gotta like
Step it up.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is also the type of students that we get now, and I think it was probably the same when you were going there, but the type of students have a lot more things going on. And then on top of that, because of the pandemic, because of politics, it's hard to escape those elements as a student. And so that, I think, puts a lot of wear and tear on the students on a regular basis. And they come to the classroom maybe a little bit more worn out than what would probably be preferred.
Sure.
And are stressed a lot easier by what's going on out in the world. And so again, I don't think it's the blame of anyone, maybe the internet,
Sure.
or the people in charge of the internet.
I don't know who those guys are, but they gotta be stopped.
There's a couple of them that need to back. But I think that those kind of things that are just like external issues are rearing their ugly head more and more as time goes on. If that makes any sense. And it's not to say that like everybody in your year was like they had it all down pat and there was no issue with getting homework done and everything of the sort. But I think it is something that's maybe a little bit more pronounced because of the environment that of how people are going through school.
Yeah.
Today.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I've noticed with students that I've worked with, they're a lot more like touchy with each other because there was like 2.5 years where they just like couldn't be in the same proximal, like, and that's something I've really noticed with like kids these days is like they like want to like wrestle more. They want to like I'm always like seeing like like teenage boys like with their like arms around each other in a way that I'm like, I don't really remember pre-pen. Maybe I wasn't noticing as much, but
you mean
I feel like
literally touchy?
Yeah, just like just because I think because like the physical touch aspect went away for people for so long.
I thought you were saying like metaphorically, like touchy, like you critique them and they go like, oh, I'm so upset.
Oh, I mean, maybe. I mean, it's art school. I imagine that's people tend to be, sensitive artists, and that's totally fine.
Like they're literally grabbing each other and like.
Yeah, where I'm like, whoa, like I think that probably has something also to do with, social isolation for so long. But yeah, I mean, friends that I have in education and even just I occasionally substitute teach, just it is harder, I think, for kids to get on board with the homework stuff.
I mean, I see there's a student right now that just said, a student of mine who is currently in my class.
Oh,
hello, Sophomos Arts, i.e. everybody that's a student there, who says, do you think attention spans got shorter post-pandemic? Absolutely.
Yeah, mine did.
I think, yeah, mine did. I think there are things like I have not been able to recover my sleep patterns since the and part of it is, stubbornness. Part of it is just the like reliance on, well, now's my time at night to sit down and do stuff because I'm having to tackle so many things during the day.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think it's just a product of our time
Yeah.
that comes into play. And it's really frustrating that we have to deal with this, but it's a reality that, I think it's going to be interesting to see. And Sophomos Arts, i.e. Ari, if we get out into the world with the student body, the seniors right now and beyond, sort of the type of struggles that they're going to have are different than the struggles that I had.
Yeah.
Different than the struggles for people who graduate the next year and the year after. And as much as I want to be able to say I have the answers that will solve all of that and will make it easy on them, I don't have all those answers because I went through a different era. The struggles that I have were similar but not the same. Like I didn't have the AI thing. You probably didn't have the AI thing the way that they do now.
No.
Or the concern about AI, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And I should probably be more concerned about AI than I am, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think I fall into the same boat as you in a way that, like, because I'm a traditional artist and
Yeah.
narrative form, I think it's probably going to hit us last if it's going to hit us.
Yeah.
I
feel this.
It's the sci-fi fantasy people that are probably getting it the hardest.
Yeah, and I really do feel for them. I mean, do you remember my friend from school, my best friend forever, who's counting, Jean Romero?
Yes.
He works for WoW now, and I'm kind of on my toes, being like, what's going to happen to your industry?
Yeah.
And we'll find out. Yeah, I think he's kind of asking the same questions, and a lot more apt to deal with it because it is in his industry.
I forgot that you and Jean Romero were the same year.
Well, he's old. If you remember, he was in the military, so he's older.
Well, no, I know he's ancient. But
yeah, he's decaying as we're speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's taking his arthritis medicine right now. I forgot that you were in the same year at school. I just for some reason it was that you were before him or after him, but not the same time frame.
Yeah, I got very lucky.
Yeah. No, he was a good one.
Yeah, he still is.
Yeah.
He's very successful, and
he's still.
Yeah, very, very proud of the work he's done. So if he's listening, even if he's not.
Yeah, got the industry that he wanted.
Which
really
hard
even
industry.
Graduating.
Yeah, it's true.
I won't go into that as a teacher of some issues I have there. No. Yeah. It's trying to get him to get that degree. So if you talk to him, you say, I think he only needs one class.
One credit.
And you tell him,
well,
Mark is here hounding you to.
I know.
He doesn't need to. He's got a job at this point that is, maybe not steady, but he's got enough work experience that
it's true. But if you wanted to teach or for any of your students listening, it is sometimes worth it to stick in it. I mean, I never have to prove I have a degree, but when because it's so rare that you just jump out of the gate and get a job in the industry right away, even though I still had to have secondary jobs, and I did still have to have a degree for that. I don't think I could have been a librarian if I didn't have a degree.
So let me ask you this then, like what, and I know that there may be people from school who are watching who are like, oh, this is going to be a hot button topic, but what is the value of art school to you? Like, obviously, I'm guessing it's not like, oh, this was a waste of money, right?
No, I don't feel that way at all.
But are there things that you look at and you go like, oh, this really was the thing that I got out of it that I wasn't expecting? Or like, to me, it's not that it's going to sound weird, but it's not the art making, it's the communal aspect in my mind that is the like star of art school.
I think it's learning how to see your work and other people's work, and seeing other people's work is just as important, and like learning how to talk about other people's work is just as important about learning how to talk about your own, because like, I have a friend who's always like, comparison is the thief of joy, and maybe there's some truth there, but I find that comparison is so helpful in art, and I think it's really about learning a new vocabulary and how to talk about how to talk about what you're seeing is not really a skill that you're taught outside of school.
Yeah.
And,
How to,
and
how to, yeah, think deeper.
I, hmm?
How to think deeper.
Yeah, how to think critically, how to think about why you like something is a skill that really has benefited me both in my career and in my life, and I, I, I think I was kind of maybe a rare case that I really did like critiques in school. And maybe some of that's because I'm chatty, but I, I don't know, like that time was really valuable about like learning how to be diplomatic, learning how to like say when you like something or um, how to very try to eloquently tell someone to change something. I I think it's just as valuable as the skills that you learn about how to talk about your industry, how to think about your taxes when you're a freelancer, which are all things that we did talk about at the end of school too.
Is there something that, like, if you went back to school, that you would have an interest in learning at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I've teetered back and forth about getting my MFA. I've kind of landed on I won't. And some of it is because I didn't really get a chance to experiment very much with 3D art.
Okay.
And I think that 3D is really helpful for or can be really helpful for illustrators to like think about your work in dimensionality. And especially because I'm someone whose work is pretty flat, thinking about how to like round things out even when it looks flat, I think is something I still, you know, actually here, I'm gonna take this away for a second. I did this piece, I got COVID and kind of like lost my mind a little bit. And I did this, oh, hello, outside. I did this piece that I really like right here, where this is my dog. And, this is clay and this is clay. And then the rest is all cut paper.
Yeah.
And, I'll zoom in a little bit. I think of this as like a sketch, it's not like a finished thing or anything, but it's kind of that. The thing I miss about art school is like that time to, experiment with what you want your art to be when it grows up,
Yeah, the freedom, because there's no like, I have to make a rent payment today
Yeah.
or tomorrow.
Which, you know what, in college I did, and there are a lot of students who did.
That's true.
I worked full time almost the whole time I was in college, and it sucked. It really sucked. I ended up getting Bell's palsy at the end of college because I was so stressed.
You ended up getting what?
Bell's palsy.
What is that?
It's like when half your face stops working.
Whoa.
Yeah, and like my arm, luckily it was on my right side and I'm left-handed.
You're not
like
me, are you?
What?
You didn't join this Gavin Doodle just so you can confront me with that right now, are you?
No. And I'm here now to cancel you, Mark Hoffman. No. I mean, I should have been more careful. There a lot of that responsibility was just things I would think about differently now as someone who has to take fish oil every day. But it's no joke. I'm really grateful that I went to school. I know a lot of people who graduated and kind of were like, it was a waste, like I didn't, like one of my dearest friends and my roommates here, went to college and now they do installation for solar panels and they love it. And I think if they could do it over again, they probably would be like, yeah, I would just skip it and go straight to like trade school. And I don't feel that way. I'm really glad that I went to art school, and I don't know who I myself, I know this is not true of everyone. I don't know that I would be where I am if I didn't do it. It was so helpful for me.
I'm of the same mindset of like, I don't think I would have challenged so many things in my life because art school created an environment for me that was about, not necessarily like being rebellious, but just the idea of like finding interesting takes on problems. And so and I think that's ultimately what like illustration is, what a lot of art making is like, how do you solve a problem that could be very straightforward, but how do you solve it in a way that is unexpected or is playful or like really breaks boundaries of the rules. You don't follow every rule to a T and just turn out something that is cookie cutter. And so
Totally.
like I definitely benefited from it, but I know there are people that like in the end go like, oh, that was a waste of time. But I also am of the mindset, and maybe this is a good question for you because this would probably be helpful for folks to hear, especially if they're considering art school of any sort. But that idea of when you walk out of art school, sometimes there's something that you learn that you don't realize you learn it until later in life.
Mm.
And I'm wondering, do you have something like that where you look back and you go like for me it was, and I use as an example with students all the time. I took a painting class when I was in school, and I thought I was really good in the class. Teacher didn't think I was that good. In turn, yeah, exactly. And I honestly, I probably wasn't. Like looking back at it, I probably like just sort of did not do enough in the class. But I look back at it and go, the thing that I learned from that class is not about the painting aspect. The thing that I learned was, oh, that's how you light a still life. Go to the class thinking that's how I need to learn about lighting. But that's the thing that I walked away with in the end. And I realized it when I became a teacher that like, oh, when I have to teach any sort of like life drawing or put a still life in front of people, like that's a skill I was not planning to learn at that time, but I did actually learn it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And are there things, especially like you being having taught, are there things that you look and go, oh man, this is the thing that I actually sort of, I learned that I wasn't expecting to be the lesson of the day?
Yeah, it's like not a very glamorous one, but it's like you always use a smaller brush than you think you're gonna need for the most part, or sometimes a bigger brush than you think you're gonna need. Like learn how to make your tools work for you, I think was really the biggest one. I look at my work in school, and even my senior year, where like there's some work that I did my senior year that I still am like, you know what, this wasn't bad. But almost all of it I do look at and say like, man, you needed a smaller brush. Like, what were you doing? And you were telling me this, all of my teachers were saying, you need to use a smaller brush. And it really wasn't until I left that I was like, I found the secret ingredient. It's what everyone told me all along.
You need a liner brush or a spot brush that is a like 10-0 or 20-0. You get the details that you want. That always frustrated me as a teacher when I was teaching those media classes, and I go, okay, everybody take out your small brush, and everybody takes a 1 or a 2 and a round brush, and I'm like, that's not small. Like where? And part of it is the kit that they gave everybody. Like that is the smallest brush that was in that kit, and so that's that's
why
small. We had there's a class I was teaching recently wherein the instructor was a knitter, and I was co-teaching, and we'd had all these students that would come up, and they'd always go, well, I'm going to make this really big. And we'd stop them and say like, okay, what does that mean? What does show us with your hands what big means? And they would show us, and she would take out a tape measure right then and there and measure what their hands were showing and go, that's the size you're talking about. And like it quantified what they, no longer was this like what was big was a subjective thing. Like now we actually had dimensions that we could put to it and go like, oh, you can go bigger or you can go smaller. But it was really funny to see that idea of like thinking about that brush size when someone says like, oh, I have a tiny brush, and then they pull out some huge brush. By comparison, it's funny to like put it in front of them and go like, okay, here's the actual brush. Look at these. Which one do you think is small and which one do you think is big?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like getting an eye exam where you're like 1, 2.
Yeah.
1, 2.
Pause in there. 1 or 2.
Yeah.
1 or 2. A
and
B.
And I I think that is such a beautiful thing about going to art schools. Like like it's learning new vocabulary. You learn how to talk about size more relative.
Yes.
It's about learning how to have more precision in your language, both visually and aesthetically, or visually and verbally, you know.
What is I
Yeah.
want to go the other end of it and say, like, so obviously, like, there's value to it in your mind. Is there one thing that you wish you did differently, though, in the sense of, like, obviously, like, you wanted to do photo at the beginning and that was totally wrong, and you made a mistake there. But
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
mean, bad decisions were made all around, right? No,
Yeah.
was there something, like, looking back that you're like, oh, I wish I, like, obviously you said the 3 dimensional thing, but are there certain skills or things that you look back and go, like, or here's a better example, or a better sort of challenge. Are there classes
Mhm.
that you wish you, like, had learned from, that now you look back and go, like, oh, they're doing something really interesting, at the time I didn't see it as relevant? Not that you name names. We don't need to highlight.
No, no,
And
no, no. I wish that. Oh God, my past self is like groaning. I wished I would have taken more graphic design classes. And at the time I was like, I don't want to be a graphic designer. It's so boring. But now, like, I wish I knew more names of typefaces. I wish I knew how to design my own books. I think that would really come in handy when art directors come to you and are like, hey, you need to make more room for type, you know?
yeah,
Or like sometimes I'll even get asked, hey, do you have an idea of what typeface you'd want for this? And I'm like, oh, no, Cochin?
yeah.
I don't know. Like,
Helvetica, Papyrus.
yeah. Times New Roman.
Yeah,
Um,
the just picking the most common. Like, let me look at my Microsoft Word real quick. Tell
yeah.
you what my choices are.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. This is true for who I am now. And also to some degree, I'm glad in school I did prioritize fun class. Sorry. Okay. No disrespect to graphic design. There's a lot of fun things about it, but for me,
Subjectively
it's
fun.
so, yeah, it's a little more technical heavy than sometimes and I honestly, I hate computers. I'm bad at it. Like it's, you know, I wouldn't say that I'm easy to tears, but honestly, I had a couple moments in my digital illustration class that brought me to tears where I was like, I can't get this to do the thing, you
Yeah,
know? So so I also don't fault myself for it, but it's a really practical skill that especially if you want to go into illustration or book illustration of any kind, you do kind of want to know a little bit about it.
yeah. I mean, just the aspect of, like, what I've found is not necessarily that I'm just picking the typeface every time or anything of the sort, but just knowing the thing that I always say to people is knowing the workload that you're putting on a designer when you don't make those decisions on, where you're going to put some text box, or where you're going to, or, like, where the text is going to land, and are you being careful of some of the decisions that are going to cause issues in post production,
Yes.
or that a designer might have to deal with. It's not that you're on a daily basis going, like, I need to lay out and typeset all these fonts, but
Mhm.
more so just these other weird little tangential things that can make someone else's life that much easier. Um, is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I kind of want to know. And then eventually, yeah, you're right. At a certain point, you just start to go, like, oh, this is the typeface that I think would be good for this. Or I want to, like, at some point, I would love to do all the typesetting for my own book. I
Yeah, me too.
convince them to let me do that, but I would love to. I mean, I can letter it, which is one thing, but typesetting would be really fun to do, I think.
I
And
definitely
not
agree.
every publisher is going to say, like, yeah, do that. But if you have the skill set, then maybe it's possible. Um,
Yeah, I something I also wasn't anticipating because I feel like something I was told in school that is not necessarily true is like I you sometimes have to ask for like, what are the dimensions? What DPI do you need it at? What kind of file do you need? Like I had something happen recently where it wasn't communicated to me that the DPI needed to be at 600 versus 350.
Whoa.
And now I have to do all the work again. And if it's knowing the language, and I think having those computer skills, even if you're a traditional artist, like you still have to be able to speak computer. And if you know how to ask those questions, it's going to save you time.
Who's printing at gigantic scales that you're
I know.
I've never heard someone asking for 600 DPI before.
Me either, which is why I was like, okay, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe they are going to make it into a poster. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. They're stealing their artwork and they're doing other things with it. They had visions for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
they want it in time there.
Or the effect of like knowing when they need layered things for marketing. And like, it may make your life easier not to have to do that after the fact. Maybe you could set up your files in a way early on, or design your method in making to better suit a process that is more digital savvy in the end of the sort. Are there publishers in particular that you would really love to work with?
Yes, Candlewick, if you're listening, it's you.
Okay. Why Candlewick?
So the two that really come to mind are Candlewick and Little Bee Press. I just think Candlewick, they have a lot of care and treatment for the books that I see come out. And I see them also do a lot of narrative-based stories still. And some publishers are moving away from that. Yeah. I'm always I'm usually very impressed by the books that come out through Candlewick. And also they're in Boston, and it'd be nice to be able to like see the office and things like that. It's just always like a nice touch to be able to meet your editors in person and things like that.
Are there any
the other one
you want to work with? I'm just asking the opposite question just to be silly. I was saying, are there any other publishers that you don't want to work with?
I don't know, like maybe like a Fox children's book. Like Babies vs. Fascist. I don't know.
Yeah. Who published those? Sadly, it's probably someone that we don't want to know that actually is like a big publisher that would publish something like that.
True. And also
place to get Madison. I'm not allowed to do that.
The other publisher I really would love to work with is Little Bee Books. They do a lot of like LGBT books, and like they just come out with some pretty good ones. And like sometimes when you write books about identity, like it's a little stale.
Yeah.
Because you're like having to explain rather than tell, and they do a good job of like having quote unquote diverse books that are like still really fun and exciting.
Is there I mean, speaking on that sort of the idea of representation and that side of it, because I know that like you not necessarily it's the heart of every book that you do, but I do know that like you like to put some of the diversity aspects into your books, as all should effectively. But I'm wondering, is there like how cognizant of it at this point are you, or is it just something naturally that you just do without even questioning of showcasing different what's the word I'm looking for,
kinds of people?
Well, not just diversity in that sense, but also diversity in like people with different like not just ethnic diversity, but like what's the word I'm like LGBTQ and like diversity in the sense of like mobility, and like that. Like, is that something that you actively sort of try to put into the work with thinking about it, or is that something that at this point you've done it enough that it just sort of happens to fall into your work without you having to do a ton of heavy lift?
I mean, like the real answer is it's just like more fun, like it's really boring to just paint the same kind of person over and over again. And like, we all deserve to see ourselves in stories. I think that that's really true. And I just think stories are more interesting when there's more kinds of people.
Yeah.
Like, it's really boring to paint the same. There's some illustrators who I really love, and I see them paint just like the same person over and over and over and over again. And I'm like, you know, I understand that, but you know, because like we all get into rhythms with our work, but visually it's more interesting. Narratively, it's more interesting. It's just, you know, and as a painter, even like you just build an appreciation for the world in a different way of like looking at people in terms of like what shapes they are, like what tones they are, you know, like it's, I just find it to be, I think it's come naturally because it's just more fun to work on,
Yeah.
you know?
Is there, I mean, I know that that your work tends to have, yeah, quite a bit of that already built in, and sort of the, how do I put this? Like, it's a very representative of sort of real life. Like even the equivalent of body shape that you mentioned, like the idea of like there's the, you know, the every body is beautiful sort of sentiment sort of shows up visually in your work, whether it literally says that, you know, probably not, but it shows up in there, and I think it's a very nice aspect to tie in. I run into the challenge myself of like I can't always put it in every book because of the, like if I'm doing a book that's about a robot, like there's weird things like maybe there is a way and I just need to figure it out. But there's a nice, like the type of work that you do and the subject matter that you do fits it so beautifully that it'd be so strange if you didn't have that in there at this point, that people would probably look at it and go like, what the hell's going on? How come
Yeah,
whole aspect?
it's just, I don't know. I think for me, I'm really interested in stories about the subliminal too. That's like, I'm not really interested in like writing a biography about, you know, Martha P. Johnson.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm glad that other people are. Like, I'm never going to be that writer. Like, I would rather I would rather talk about people visually than I would in words.
Oh, go ahead.
I I find that even in my own identities, like even, you know, the book that I'm pitching now is like, you know, it's about a little sheep or a little goat, and she's making a Jewish recipe, but it's not really about her being Jewish, you know. It's about, you know, how are the different ways that we like find, you know, connection around us.
Yeah.
And I find that, you know, you can kind of do the same thing visually of talking about the connection and the subliminal.
Do you, when working on books, the idea of like, I mean, obviously some of it's subject matter too, like the idea of you tend to have this I hate to use this term because I feel like it could probably be seen as a negative, but like there is a earthy vibe to it.
Oh, yeah.
Like celebration of nature that puts up, maybe that
Yeah.
sort of describe that. And I'm wondering, is there like, obviously I bet you, I'm going to make a wild stab here and say that you probably like nature of some sort.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, but yes.
Yeah, I know it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an aspect of nature of that sort of approach that is maybe, how do I put this, like maybe that you don't like the equivalent of here's my the question I'm really trying to get at is there a part of nature that you think is gross?
Oh, I just really like the gross stuff. And I actually like, I kind of like the natural underbelly the most. Like, Do you know what banana slugs are?
Yes.
I was just I'm
Slugs
sorry.
are like one of the things that I'm willing to get rid of off this planet.
Yeah,
I don't like
you're
I
ready.
don't like gelatinous creatures.
Oh, that's so. Yeah, I mean, it's okay to be wrong. I understand. Um,
Wait, are you saying for you or are you saying for me?
for
Uh,
you. Um, yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the natural ick. You know, like I feel like there's a certain kiddishness you can always have, even if you're poking it, being like, "Oh, this is gross." You know, like I I really enjoy that. I've been scheming this little field guide with a friend that's kind of about that. And she's amazing. She is a um she does animal tracking. What's the word I'm looking for? She teaches programs about animal tracking, and she is an expert in animal poop.
hmm.
And
These are the
you
kind
know,
of
I've
friends
gone
you
on
hang out
walks
with?
with her. What?
So these are the kind of friends you hang out with? We all make our decisions in life, and
Yeah, I get it. You know, she you know, like we'll be on walks sometimes and she'll be like, "Oh, I saw the most amazing owl pellet here recently."
wait until you see this dump
That's
in the corner over here.
yeah. Yeah.
So, sorry to go there. I went there maybe a little too hard on that statement.
No, it's I mean it really is like that, but she's so I mean it's so beautiful that she's so enamored by it. And like that is such a little kid trait that like I love when adults have, you know?
the it's
They're like, "Oh, that's gross. I have to know more."
yeah. There's certain things I'm willing to know more about. Like I guess I like the idea of slugs. They're totally fascinating. Would I
Oh,
want to see one and touch one in person all that much? Nah, I could pass. Uh,
yeah.
it's a like I. This is gonna sound weird too. I like fish. I don't want ever want to touch fish.
Oh, no, I feel this. Fish are they're like chickens. I look at them and I'm like, that's still kind of a dinosaur.
Yeah, that you're right up.
You know?
I didn't even connect, but yeah, a chicken like chickens are cool. I want to go look at chickens. I want to feed chickens. Do I want to hold a chicken? No, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't pinpoint and say like this is the exact reason why I don't want to hold a chicken. It's not as simple as that. Um, but there is a disconnect there of like there's something weird about holding something that has like weird feet like that and has no arms and yeah, there's something there. Um,
Chickens are like really primordial. I don't know. I there's like both an ancient wisdom and an ancient stupidity that I feel when I look at a chicken. You know, I'm like, you both know so much and so little. I see it in your eyes, you know?
I like the idea of the stupidity in a chicken. Uh,
Yeah.
you should be smarter, dude, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
gave up too early. You
We did absolutely breed them to be like that though. So I don't blame them too hard.
you need more time in the cooker.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not fully baked. Uh,
Absolutely.
I that sort of hit too close to home thinking about chickens. Like, yeah, I don't really like. My wife would probably be shocked by that one, but like, because she's very much a nature person as well, and like
Nice.
loves that kind of stuff. But she knows I don't like slugs. But chickens, like again, I like chickens. I want to hold
Yeah.
one.
No, that's
yeah,
okay. And they don't want you to hold them either, if it makes you feel any better.
yeah. Sometimes they look at me that way though. Like
Yeah.
they really want a little like love.
Yeah.
I don't. I just can't. I can't give it to them every time.
I
Um,
get it. Do you have pets? Are you an animal guy?
I'm very much a dog person now. I realized
Yeah.
we have two cats, and then we have two dogs. And when we got these dogs, like our previous dog was cool and all, but when we got these
Yeah,
dogs, I'm all in on these dogs.
they're fun, right?
We got little ones. We got little Chihuahua mixes.
Oh, a Chihuahua mix is good.
Uh, yeah,
A purebred Chihuahua I struggle with, but with a mix, you can get some good
yeah,
stuff out of that.
yeah. Like one of ours is a Chug,
Oh,
and
oh,
a
nice.
Chihuahua pug mix, and she's very very smart, but also kind of nuts at times. And then the other one is a what do they call it? A Chiwiener,
Oh yeah,
but
a Chihuahua or
yeah, but
something. Yeah.
also a little bit of lab in there too. So
Oh,
she's
so she's crazy looking.
yeah, well, she's just sort of she looks like a tiny lab,
Oh, that's
but she's
fun.
also dumb as a rock.
Oh, that's fun in a dog,
Yeah,
though.
and I mean, it is fun unless it's you're trying to get her to do something where you're like, okay, you got to go out and go potty before bed, and she just stares at you and doesn't move. That's a little annoying. But she is adorable in her own way. But I've realized getting these dogs that I'm just like, yeah, I really love dogs. Like
They're
I like
fun.
cats.
Yeah.
I'm okay with having cats, but if I had a choice, dogs all the way.
Yeah, I feel the same way. My roommate has a cat named Steamy, and yeah, which is like a really funny name. I guess her whole name is Steamy Licks.
Oh, like
Um,
Stevie
yeah,
Nicks. Okay,
yeah,
got
but
it.
it's Steamy Licks. Yeah, and she like I'm fascinated by Steamy, and I even love her, but like sometimes when I'm away from Ginny, I think to myself, I miss my dog right now, and I know she misses me.
Wait, is Jenny the shortened name to Virginia Woolf?
Virginia Woolf. Yeah, I really only call her Virginia Woolf when she's in trouble.
I just
But it is
when
like
you said Jenny,
when the
off
vet
guard
calls
for a
me.
second. That was I had to think there for a minute
Yeah.
what you meant by that.
Yeah, like when the vet calls me, the vet will be like, you have a vet appointment for Virginia Woolf. So it's like her Christian name, but you know, no, it's rare people call her it.
Now I'm assuming. Oh, my wife says, by the way, Virginia Woolf is a an amazing
Oh,
dog name. I
thank you.
assume
Thank
that
you.
you know. My rooster snuggles in. Leslie Breen illustration, who's also in Kidlit, is talking about their rooster. That's not okay. I'm just no. I'm looking back and seeing uh, what people are saying here. Do you know our dogs' names?
No.
So we got you beat on dog names.
Okay. All right. Let's hear it.
One of our dogs is Miss, or I'm sorry, Little Miss Mayonnaise. So
Oh, wow.
first name is May, middle initial O, and last name Nays. Little
That's
Miss May.
funny. That's really good.
And she's the little white chug. The other one is Chicken Noodle Corn Dog.
Wow.
You think you have something with Virginia Woolf? Chicken Noodle Corn Dog.
Yeah, what do you call him? Like what's
It's
so that
noodle and mayo.
wow, that's amazing. Chicken noodle corn dog though, that's like brilliant.
It's a good name. However, I forget who I was talking to with recently on here, where they said like they were talking about that, and then I said when you talk to the vet and you have to introduce your name of the pet to
Yeah.
the practice, when I said it over the phone, the lady said, this is her reaction. I could just hear her go. And like immediately I knew like he does not appreciate love that name. Now other people that work there that practice love that name, but that
Oh, it
did not like
rules.
it.
Okay.
She was
Well,
not happy that day.
I
Maybe
don't know,
long.
I don't know this lady, but she needs to learn how to
Yeah,
live a little.
yeah, exactly.
If
I mean,
if you're not down with the chicken noodle corn dog, we're not down, you
and
know.
that name was born out of our son wanted. What did he want? He wanted corn dog. I wanted to name the dog originally just Soup. That's the
That's
word
great.
Soup.
That's
And then my wife thought of chicken noodle soup, and then it became chicken noodle corn dog, and it was very
wow, that's amazing. And then Miss Mayonnaise, that feels a little more
yeah.
obvious.
It's a white dog, and that one came very quickly. That was not a like a we have to have a discussion about what to name the dog. That was just a pretty obvious. this name situation.
Okay, I'm done.
You just gotta. Did you say you're done?
Yeah, I finished.
Whoa! I got one more. I gotta complete. Zoom out.
All right, let's see where
Zoom
you're.
out. Zoom out. Let's.
Okay. I'm gonna take my phone off the silly little mount. Hold on. So I'll do a little editing on Photoshop. Like I'll probably redo the hand lettering, to be honest. But here it is.
Wait,
Hold
there's
on.
a delay on my end, so give me a second to catch up here. Oh,
So I'll add maybe the word pickles in Photoshop, and she's got her little tickle here for a scarf dance, and then the little fiddle.
I did not watch at the beginning. Did you use the template to make sure those outfits fit?
I actually sketched it on my iPad so I could.
Oh, so it's a copy and paste. Gotcha.
Yeah, well, I mean, I traced it off my iPad, but I did draw them.
Yes.
So there it is.
I was thinking you just arbitrarily drew those, and I'm like, oh man, what if those don't line up?
No. And I'll post later on. I'll post the full finish, so people can see it pre and post Photoshop.
Cool, I dig it.
Yeah. All right. Can we get a zoom in of yours?
Let's see. We got. Yeah, I'll do this. Let's see if I can get it. Whoa. So we got the initial.
The spout,
and I need to add a few little like raindrops starting here. Just
this is cute.
Up.
Yeah.
And then we got rain came down and washed the spider out. So the thing. And then this is the sun came out, and so I need to make little sun rays around. This is a little. It's hard to see right now, but there's a little oval that's there. That's the sun coming back out, and I'm gonna make a few little water things down at the bottom. But I just got.
So are you painting on like just like computer
tracing paper?
On tracing paper, so that it's a little translucent.
Yeah. So like Eric Carle used to use tissue paper, and
wow,
when I started this, I was like, I don't have tissue paper, but I also realized the tissue paper is a little thinner and tear than what trace is, and as well. Buying large quantities, like big pads of it, without having like creases in it and all sorts of stuff was maybe a little awesome. And so I, the idea of just using plain old trace sort of made sense for what I needed. And so I just buy big old packs of trace, and I buy big old boxes of glue sticks, and I buy big old, I don't know what else I buy big old, but things of the sort.
Scissors?
Yes. The scissors, I can't, for anybody out there that wants to do what I do, these are the thing for me. The whole thing comes down to these Fisker, I forget what type of shears these are. But
these are like the ergonomic scissors.
And the reason I like that is like, it's not these little delicate fingers. Like if I'm cutting, it's like, it's a serious cut. And so I can't get the detail. And so things are a little awkward and crunchy around the edges because of these big old clunkers. And I've actually thought about getting another pair in case these ever go down.
Right.
And they still sell this exact same type. And so I might buy an extra pair at some point. Actually.
Yeah.
What? Oh, my easy action shears. And so like maybe for a stocking stuffer at some point.
Yes.
Some Santa Claus will come and deliver me another pair of these, so I have a backup.
For people who have arthritis, or who are worried about arthritis, they are very ergonomic and they're lighter on your hands, so you don't put as much pressure on them if you do a lot of cutting. Those scissors are more approved by orthopedics or whatever, from what I've heard.
Are you an orthopedist? What's going on here?
I'm actually marketing for them. No, I have like wrist problems from painting so much, and I've had friends who have recommended those scissors to me many times because they're like, oh, it'll change it. This changes the game.
We have a pair upstairs that is a similar type, but it doesn't have the same like locking mechanism on it. It's on the back, so it's harder to lock, but this one's just
it's easy.
Side. It's funny, you mentioned that idea of like the the pains and struggles that illustrators go through, and
Yes.
we all break down.
Mhm.
Things that I think is really funny is, you know, the book that we used in class that was the Graphic Artists Guild
Oh yeah.
book, that also has now a section on health issues
Wrist health.
for illustrators. To me,
Wow.
is actually fantastic because it was sort of ignored before, but now all of a sudden it is a thing that shows up in the book, and so it's good for the students to know about some of the ergonomic issues that show up. Like, I'm hunched over. I don't know what your back is like, but yeah,
Not great.
exactly. Over a desk like this, and I assume you have the same problem of, like, people go, well, you can sort of elevate it or make it at an angle that's easier on you, but if you're working with wet media,
You
that's
can't.
not always an option.
Yeah, I have a friend who just taught herself to paint standing up, and while I respect it, it'll never be me.
you, that's
You
cool,
know?
but loser, and you walk away. Gotcha.
Yeah. No, I'm sitting there envying her knees, being like, "Oh, you'll never have problems like me." But I still won't do it.
The what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's interesting, and part of it may be I am now, obviously I'm older than you by like a year or two, I think.
Yeah, you're
Um,
about
yeah,
33, if I
somewhere in
remember
that
correctly.
range.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but the things that have physically happened or just wear and tear that I'm surprised by, like I've mentioned to a few folks, I've had frozen shoulders in both shoulders.
Hmm.
And talking to the doctor, like, oh, it's because probably a repetitious movement. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
I believe it.
really? Like, even just this little, like, movement of my arm painting was enough to probably do me in for that kind of stuff. But it's one of those things, like, I just never knew growing up, or like when I was in school, that like that might actually become an issue. Like, I understood carpal tunnel, like I get that side of it, but I'm trying to see. Well, my wife's talking about those scissors, and like occupational therapists recommending the same thing. Um,
Yeah, she
blah,
knows
blah, blah.
what's up.
I'm looking. Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss a question here at the end. Well, I don't want to keep you if you're done. You don't have to sit and watch me finish. You're more than welcome. You can't.
Well, honestly, it's about my bedtime, so
That's so lame. I can't believe you.
I know. I know. I gotta go to bed so I can take my fish oil bright and early.
I don't know what that means, but okay. Um,
Oh, earlier I'd said I'm getting older and I have to take fish oil
did you
now.
have to take
So
it at a certain point for sleep?
no,
Okay,
no, it's just I just go to bed earlier and I wake up
that's
earlier
that's
because
all I
I'm
was wondering. I was like,
because I'm getting old. Yeah.
fish oil. Well, I can't say enough. Thank you for joining me, and I'm going to add in on top of that, which I normally say thank you for joining, but I'm also going to say how proud I am, and I know other folks, Montserrat folks, are of what you have done with your career. I'm sure Jill is the same way, and you've probably heard it from Jill too. But and if you haven't, Jill's a real pain in the hide. If there's no telling you how proud they are of you. But really, it's so impressive to see the work that you're getting, and hear all the sort of successes and whatnot. And I just can't express enough how great it is to see you uh, getting the recognition that you deserve.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
Here, I'll do this.
I mean, I couldn't have done it without you.
I'll do this. I'll switch back to the old
Oh, here.
mug. Um,
I even take off my glasses for a second.
my camera
How do I-
slowly tilts. Truly, it is wonderful. I'm so happy that to not only see all that, but to have you on here and to sort of catch up. And we'll be in touch.
Yeah, my sister still lives in Gloucester, so next time I'm around, I'll hit you up and
If you're in town, swing in. Like, let me know.
Yeah.
We'll grab lunch or something like that and catch up. And you can come in and you can trash talk the students. You can come in and teach them what for. Say,
oh yeah.
I've been where you are, and I know the reality of the world and how it's gonna crap on you day after day.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'll get in there. I'll make them all drop and give me 50 push-ups. You don't want frozen shoulders, do you?
Walk in with a whistle.
Yeah.
Just really, really get
It's like corn or something. It still has to be a little whimsical.
It'd be amazing if you walked in with like marching music and a little bugle and really ordered them around. Again, like I said, I'm so proud. I'm very excited to hear, and you'll have to shoot me a DM with that dog toy, because we will get that dog toy for our doggies. Like obviously books we know about, but the dog toy I didn't know about, and so
oh my gosh, yeah, they're so fun.
Yeah.
Are your dogs chewers, or are they like normal?
They're pretty normal. I mean, they're not normal,
yeah.
But when it comes to chewing, they're
they're great toys. My dog is just like a vicious chewer, so they never stood a chance. But
most dog toys are dogs. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
All right, go get some sleep.
All right, good to see you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, folks. Again, thank you to Madison Safer. If you can go out there and get those books, she was great tonight. I'm going to continue working because I still have this other one. I finished the others. I need to do this one and get this one up to speed. So I have my triptych, and then I will. I'm not even sure I'm going to do this on Instagram because they're. I mean, I guess I can do it that way. Okay, never mind. I'm figuring out how to how am I going to post this thing, because it's 3 images. It's gross. It's sequential. Why would I want to do something like that? So I'm going to switch back down. I'm going to get rid of this Ask Us Anything. I'm going to change it to a Ask Me Anything. And I see there's actually a question in there that I missed. Not me anything. And I'll work until I get this done, and then we'll wrap up for the night. So Ask Me Anything. Boom, 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 boom. Send. I will pin that comment real quick. I see there's a question here. So Cure Arts collab. Yeah. I keep wanting to put a T there. Does ask, do you ever sell your originals? I don't know if that was directed at Madison or me. I will tell you on my end, yes, I do. There are some originals on my website. I need to probably post a bunch more. If there's something in particular that you're looking at that you would like to buy, just DM me, and I would be happy to quote you a price for them. I have a bunch over to the side. All the ones I do on Gabato, there's some that I want to hold on to because they're special to me. Some of them are totally up for grabs, but it's a matter of I need to hone in on which ones I can put up on my site and make available. So anyways, totally. All right, I'm going to go back and finish my work. So if there's questions, you throw them in. Again, here's the sketches I'm working on tonight. Here, we'll hold them up there. This is this one. It's going up the chute there. The water one going down the chute, down the spout is this one. And this one is the climbed up the spout. This one's the start. Itsy bitsy spider climbed up the water spout. He sees the rain. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Oh no. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider climbed up the spout again. I do the same one, but just get rid of the top. Anyways, I just got to finish this one, get the details in there the way that I want them, to color it in there. So let me go switcheroo down to my surface, and we will go from there. Oh, my back. So I'll try to stay a little bit more zoomed in than what I was before, if I can. I'm basically doing colored pencil and a few other little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, this is the extent of it. I might, where's that pencil? I have a pencil here somewhere. Maybe it was this one. Is it this one? I think it must be. Just make sure I didn't lose a pencil in this mix here somewhere. That's a little too dark. I don't want that one. Let's see if I can get in here with a little bit of. I just want to lighten this edge of the sun. Little more. And then what I'll do is come back at it with that same sort of yellow, if I can, to sort of soften up that. So it's a little bit more yellow versus white along that edge that I'm building there. Okay, there we go. So again, if there are questions, holler. I just want to make sure this is on screen enough here. There we go. Okay, let's get back in here and let's keep doodling. So I just need to put some colors in where I want colors. I want some little furry feet. Here, I want, where are they? This guy can be those little furry feet. I don't even know if they have furry feet, but that's what they are in my mind. And then there was, those are all done. Okay, so let's get in there with this guy, and this guy. Is that right? Yeah, I guess that's it. Okay. Not that. Let's do this one and this one. There we go. So I want to get some indications of fur in here. So again, if there's questions, throw them in the comments for us, and I will try to answer accordingly. What I might do is put a little shadow in between this one. Just soften it a little bit with another colored pencil. Try to even it out. Some fur in here. The furry spider. Where's the other one? Oh, there it is. And this guy can have a, where's the black pencil? There we go. A smile. A smile on his face because he's having a good old day. Some pinks. Pinks up there. Maybe a little touch of that. Where's that orange? Orange on there. Okay. Maybe pinkify that. Orangeify that. Okay. Now it needs something here. One, it needs a little drop shadow. But actually what I should do is this pencil first, which is my Prismacolor. I don't know if anyone else had trouble understanding the upside down face of the middle one at first. I think it's two squinted eyes together. At first I saw it as a mouth. Like you saw a puckered mouth on the upside down one? Mrs. Hoffy? I want to make sure I understand what you're saying when you say that. Okay, I can adjust that. What? So let's look at it here real quick. So what you're saying, you see the mouth, you're seeing the mouth as eyebrows? I saw that too. Okay. I want to make sure I get that good for you. Because what I'm looking at is like this, like sort of squinty. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out what's the solution to solve that. So it's the fact the eyes are squinting in one big lump sum. Okay. Because that's easy enough to fix. I might have to do a little bit of erasing if I can find my eraser in this horrible mess of things on my desk. see if I can find my eraser. Where is it? It's gotta be here somewhere. There it is. Found it. So if I start to pull that out, and then what I'll do is I'll make the squints not actually touch. So there's a little bit more of a squint there. And what I might do is also bring the brows in a little bit and maybe touch a little bit of pink going out to the edge. So we don't want it to look like something else. I think maybe if it was closer up, or it was a, I wonder if I do this and then come back and do also two little teeth. That's funny to me. That sort of setup. So it's a little more clearly like he's falling down. Maybe I'll make this a little bit wider there. That might do it. Okay. And then I also wanted to, because this one didn't have the same pink, I want to hit it with this little bit more of this punchier pink right there. Okay, done. This one's done. Yeah, wait for that to dry. Let me get back in here and finish what I was doing. So, what I want to see is, can I get just a little hint of shadow underneath those without making it too dramatic? This one's so much lighter, even though it's got this big dark spot. I feel like it needs like something that's maybe a little darker on a couple of these. So like what I might actually do, just to draw Micah. Hello, Micah Player. I might make these maybe just a touch darker, just so it doesn't feel so bare in there. And then I might make the eyebrows on this one a little touch heavier. And then we need some shadows on the ground. The question of getting these sort of in there in a way, and maybe okay. Now I need to do some water drops. Let's see if I can grab little sections of this, a little puddle of water if I can. That's sort of spilling out of there. Just this little, like, try to figure out how much of this I want to put in there. I don't want it to come out too much. Like, I think that's, let's see, my hands are so sticky. I think that's too much. Sit in there. Where's this guy? So if I do that, I feel like it covers up the whole bottom. It'd be nice if it was like maybe just a little touch of it sort of in there, and maybe one little drop that's out over here, and call it that. So let's do this. I will do one, round that out, touch. We'll go in here, we'll slice this guy like so. So it sits right there. Oh, come on, it keeps jumping up. There we go. So it sits like that, and then this little guy, what I'll do is I'll cut it down to a little better of a droplet shape. This blade is dying on me here. And this little guy will just like sit out here ever so nicely outside of it, so it feels like water is drained out. Ah, keep flipping over. There we go. And rotate right about like that. So we have a little hint of water, and I'll put a sheen on it. Micah, thank you. The spine on. I don't know if you saw the others, but here's the spider, the itsy bitsy spider going up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain, and the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. You have to say it that way too. Okay, let me get this in here. Okay, let's see. Line this up again. About right there. Press it down. Hope that it doesn't move on me too much. This one, that's on the wrong side. Let's flip it over again. This is a problem with little pieces and sticky fingers. So it gets very hard to deal with, but we can get there. Let's see. This guy's going to be right out there. Stick. There we go. Okay. Get those in there. I'm going to go put some highlight on them. They feel a little wet, a little bit of water. Okay. Now, there are a couple other little spots that I see, like stuff where a little smudge got on the thing. I want to get rid of that. The spider designer reminds me of just Hannigan's work. Matthew Briggs. Yeah, there's a little hint of that. We've had Jess on here. It's probably the like square paws, I'm assuming. She has the sort of similar where it's like a single circle and then the arc feet that are there. We live in a similar world, let's put it that way. The two of us. Jess's work is fantastic. If people don't know Jess's work, it's worth going out and seeing. And she has a new one coming out that we just pre-ordered, I believe, in our household. That is the bear one, if I remember correctly. I remember she was working on that when she was on back in the day. I feel like this one still needs like something. I feel like it needs something dark. And I don't know what the thing that should be dark is the problem. I think it does need more. One it needs some fur over here, but it needs some orange in there because the other one had orange. That one probably needs some orange too. Just a variety of color in there. And then let's get, where did I just put it? Where did that one go? That's white. I don't want pure white. There it is. A little bit of that coming up. A little bit of and there, maybe a little touch of orange here as well. Trying to see if I can get that inner color to match, because when I erased it, erased some of the color. Together and see if I can blend accordingly. This side just needs a touch more of this mahogany color. There we go. Okay. Trying to see if there's anything else that I want to do to this. I'll make these. Ooh, it's not gonna stick in all cases of this. Raindrops. There's one that had a little issue that I have to fix now. Right there. Maybe a little hot spot of blue in that one. They don't necessarily need. There we go. Something like that. And then one other little touch that I see here that I want to make sure I get in here, which is just little shadows, little subtle ones. Where's my brush? There's my brush. Thanks for being an ASMR. I hope you're not really seriously listening to me yammer on as AMSR. No, I didn't even get it right. ASMR. Here's what I will do. Oh, you know what I should do on this one? I should do this. For anybody that has downspouts like this, some little wrinkles. I imply that's where they wrinkled that downspout. And then maybe one other little like touch there. To imply there's a seam. Okay. Do we think that's good enough? That's the question. Is that? I might be at the point where I can quit. Okay, folks, I think that may be it. So let me clean up my stuff. We're at 11:36. That's pretty good time-wise. I don't want to push it too hard here. I see one other thing. Oh, I see one other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to take one of these, not that green. I want one of these greens here. And I'm going to touch these colors just a touch to get a bit green in them. Minor little touch. Okay. There we go. Let me just keep cleaning up, and then I will put this as standard fare. I will put this on top of the black background so you can see it a little easier. It's not a bunch of random colors. Let me, this video is having problems loading here. There we go. I will clean up all this mess later, as per usual. I come down the next time right before I go on, and there's a huge mess. What? Yeah, and then here's the lovely blackboard that it all can sit on. So we got a nice clean shot color-wise of these. So let's put them in the order they go in. They go like this. And I will zoom out here as best I can. I'll try to get them on there so that they're all visible in one shot. Sorry, I'm having to adjust this thing. It keeps falling on me. I'll tighten it up a little. Ooh, and I just turned off my light. There we go. Okay, come on. Get steady on me. Close enough. We'll end right there, like that. Yes, my desk is a mess. Yes, I need to clean it up. I get it. Okay, anyways, this is it for the night. I'll do the story again. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed that spider out. Out came the sun, dried up all the rain. What? And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. What do you say, Lauren? Okay, So next week we have on Noah Denman. That's going to be I'll announce the next month. I'm going to work on those tomorrow and get them all ready and post over the weekend the monthly ad, so you'll see who all is coming up. But we have most of them are at night, except for the second one. There's a little shifteroo that's during the daytime because that's my spring break at school. But go check out Noah Denman stuff if you have not yet. We're very excited to have them on. That's it for the evening. I hope you all had a lovely time, and I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.